Check 1, 2.
Hello, morning, sir. Good.
If anybody's gonna speak, I'm just gonna ask that you sign in before. Thank you.
Chauncey over in my back. My Chauncey and along with Chauncey, I'm talking in my back.
Good, sir.
You sign? Sure you are, but just sign in. How you doing, honey? I'm well, and you?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's town board meeting. It is Tuesday, March 12th, 2019. A number of you, this is good.
Are we all hearing us?
A number of you may be here for a couple of different reasons. The water has always been an issue. People have some questions about that. Our town engineer will be here in a little while. He could address some of those questions. We'll start off with our bids and awards this evening. The first item is awarding the 2019 HVAC maintenance contract to Carico Heating and Cooling. It's purchase order 162-1907.
I'd like to make a motion for approval.
The guarantee on that?
Pardon me?
Guarantee.
We have to wait.
Did she have to read?
No, I don't have to read anything.
Okay, so I was in order.
We just didn't get to total cost or anything.
Is that
The
correct?
town board has reviewed the contract that I believe is a two-year contract. And my computer is not coming up yet. Do you have the numbers on that?
Yes, I have it right here. It's a 2-year annual contract beginning March 8th, 2019, which should take us to March 8th, 2021.
There's a monthly payment there.
24 monthly payments of $940 each, total cost $22,560.
Thank you.
You have a motion with Tom.
Tom made the motion?
Yeah, I made a motion for approval, ladies and gentlemen.
And I will second that. Thank
Motion
you.
by Mr. Saliano, second by Ms. Smalley. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is award the ball field clay sand mix to Custom Clay. I believe they have been a competitive contractor on this field materials for a number of years with the town. So I know, Lori, you're familiar with
Yes.
the order.
They're very, very reputable, and when we order, everything is delivered on time. Do you want me to go ahead and read it? Because waiting for your computer to come up? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess
Um,
I got the bad one.
Okay.
Bad mic too.
This is from Steve Mott in Parks and Recreation. Award Ball Fields Clay Sand Mixture to Custom Clay Incorporated. 2 bids were received for Ball Fields Clay Sands Mix, and Custom Clay came in at $65 a ton. The low bidder, Carreri, failed to submit a laboratory analysis certificate as required by the specifications. On advice of the town attorney, this bid is considered non-responsive, and we ask that this bid be rejected. The bid received from Custom Clay contained all the required documents. They have been the town supplier for many years, and we have been satisfied with their performance. We therefore recommend awarding the bid to Custom Clay at the bid price of $65 per ton. I would like to go ahead and make a motion for that, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second.
second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to public hearings. The first one is create Chapter 134, dealing with the possession, distribution, and consumption of marijuana and cannabis-related substances in the town of Mount Pleasant. Proposed local law number 3 for 2019. I would ask the town clerk to read the notice.
Please take notice that the town board of the town of Mount Pleasant, New York, shall conduct a public hearing at the town hall on the 12th day of March 2019 at 8:00 p.m. to discuss a proposed local law number 3, 2019, which would create Town Code Chapter 134, unlawful possession, distribution, and consumption of marijuana. Please take further notice. The proposed local law number 3, 2019 is available for review in the town clerk's office. Please take further notice that at the public hearing upon said proposed local law, an opportunity to be heard in regards thereto will then and there be given to those favoring passage of such proposed local law and also those opposed thereto. Susan Marmol, Town Clerk, Town of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you. The public hearing is open on this topic, and anybody wishes to speak on it is welcome to do so.
I just asked for you to sign in if you haven't done so already. Thank you. Okay.
Lisa Tane, 6 Foxman Road. Speaking in opposition to the proposed local law as a community member, parent of 3 girls, and a lifelong advocate for children. Abuse of drugs is a public health issue, not a criminal justice issue. Those who abuse drugs need help, not jail. This is about equity. So many already smoke and sell pot, but it is the minorities and those from poor communities who are prosecuted. The war on drugs was started by the Nixon administration to disrupt the Black and anti-war communities, and this war has been completely ineffective. Youth, if for many who are concerned about our youth, they already use marijuana. There has not been an increased use in the states that have legalized. It has remained stable and even decreased in some places. What you gain in legalizing marijuana is the ability to control and regulate the supply, a safer product, money to use for education around the real dangers of the abuse of drugs, reality-based conversations using a safety-first curriculum, and counseling for the underlying conditions that lead to abuse. Better restrict minors' access to marijuana, increase accessibility for those with medical needs, put tax dollars to better use, create new jobs, and generate millions of dollars in revenue. Finally, personally, I would rather smoke a joint than have a drink. I resent that the government has decided that it's okay for me to have alcohol and not okay for me to smoke pot. There's no rational reason that makes this acceptable. The state and the community I live in should allow responsible adults to choose for themselves. I therefore oppose this law.
Anyone else? Anyone else wish to speak on this topic?
Hi, my name is John Muller. I live at 52 Guyon Street in Pleasantville. I am for this law. We just did this in Pleasantville. We think it's a great idea. Just to address a few things on it, I think people aren't really understanding about how this is going to take shape in terms of who's going to run this and who has control of it. So if you look in the news recently, as far as business is concerned, Big Tobacco and Big Liquor are taking huge stakes in Canadian grow companies. And I think that we can all agree that the liquor industry and the tobacco industry has not traditionally played nice when it comes to our kids. Our big concern in Pleasantville is that it's within the sight line of children. We have nowhere to put it. I think there's probably a different argument for decriminalization, but as far as the sale of retail marijuana, we are definitely opposed in Pleasantville, and I'm here to support the local law. A few things. If you look at some of the stuff, we have to be very careful what we're reading, because a lot of the pro stuff is written by consultants for Big Tobacco and Big Liquor. And if you look at Smart Approaches to Marijuana, which has all references you can go to and review, a lot of the things that have happened in the states that have legalized, like Colorado and Oregon and Washington, D.C., it hasn't turned out to be the financial windfall that we expected. One thing that no one has taken into consideration is what the cost is for emergency services once this gets enacted. So the governor's predicting $300 million in tax revenue. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I can tell you that police response is going to go up. Emergency room visits are going to go up, because this has already happened in the states that have legalized. I've heard also from people to say, well, if the state legalizes it, then we really don't have a choice. But I urge you to do it anyway, and just to send a strong message, because when we don't respond to this and we just let this go through and we make our elected legislators at the state level think that it's okay, it's not okay. And I think that if whatever should happen, it shouldn't be buried in the executive budget in the state where they're voting on it with a million different things, I think. And I would urge you guys also to reach out to the state like we did in Pleasantville and say, if this is something the state wants to pass, you should give each local municipality the right to opt out. Let's be a real democratic society. Put it on a referendum. Let people vote for it. I can guarantee you that in both of these places, you probably would have votes in support of banning retail marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Colleen Wagner, 3 Country Club Lane in Pleasantville. I too am here to let you know that I'm in favor also of this, well, I don't know what you call it in the town.
Local law.
Local law. One of the things, and I apologize for looking down, but I can't remember all that. One of the things that we did, I too am from Pleasantville, and we've been very active in communicating our point, is there's a great study by the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. I don't know that you've gotten that, but I'd be happy to send you a copy of it. And it's a study of what happened in the states that have already legalized retail marijuana. And without getting into all the specifics, the issue is everything they thought that would go down went up, and everything they thought would go up went down. Use is up. Arrests are up, hospitalizations up. Actually, alcohol use is up, and they thought alcohol use would go down. And it goes into a lot of detail. It also talks about how much money, as Mr. Muller just pointed out, they're spending on emergency room visits. And so all this tax dollars that they think that they're getting in, they're spending so much on how do we determine if someone is high, the testing that they do, and all the accidents that have happened in ER visits. I don't want to tell anybody what an adult should do, but I am a mental health counselor, and I will tell you that children should not be using substances. Their brains aren't fully developed. So I'm sort of coming from the point of what can we do to keep this as far away from our kids for as long as we possibly can. And, you know, making it more available is going to make it more available. We already have a problem when it's not available. But if we're going to make it available, it's going to go up. I also encourage you to get in touch with our state legislators to get this out of the budget. This is not a budgetary issue. This is a social issue. It's a mental health issue, and it shouldn't be buried in a budget. It should be a standalone item where we can really talk about, what's right and what's wrong and what's best for our children. So I appreciate you listening. And if you'd like me to send that report, I'd be happy to send it to your email addresses.
Definitely.
Okay.
Please do.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm here to be anti-making local laws.
Can you just state your name, please?
My name's Bevan Ross, and I'm from Thornwood. I agree that it is an issue of equity, and banning marijuana use often hurts people more than it does help people, because people end up in jail for minor crimes, and it affects their entire lives. I think what we really need to focus on is access to more education for our young people in our community, and more access to things that are fun. If you're worried about children in our community being bored and smoking pot, then why don't you provide more activities for them to do? Last week when I was here for the town hall, you allocated thousands of dollars for a water feature for our community pool. But our community pool costs $500 for a family. And a lot of the poor children in our community who you're concerned about cannot attend that, and you're spending local tax dollars on it. So I know, but you know what? We're not all wealthy. And so when you're thinking about our community—
This is not an issue of wealth.
I'm just saying that this is a local issue, and marijuana use is a state issue. So passing a local law is just putting your moral feelings on record when it won't really do anything, because it's a state law. So why don't you think about solving local problems like access to activities for our children in our community? Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to respond to that, because first of all, we have probably one of the most acclaimed recreation programs in the entire county, in the Westchester County.
My son attends it.
That's great. I'm just saying that we already have an excellent recreation program. Number one. Number two, the issue is not so much about personal feelings about this issue as it is more about the state once again dictating to us a law that was poorly researched and, in my opinion, is being forced upon municipalities to deal with without there being a very long-term approach. First of all, there's been no discussion about the education of this issue for our kids. There is no component of education. There is no discussion of what are we going to do in the schools. I work in the schools, so it's a personal issue for me. And I know there was a mental health counselor here. And when you deal with adolescents, you understand what their needs are. And when you decide to jam down something that recreationizes, it's not really a word, but we'll make it one tonight, something like a drug, okay, access and recreation to adolescents is permission. So we have to do this carefully. We have to do it very carefully. We have to include an educational component. And the state has refused, absolutely refused to address that yet. The New York State High School PTAs have been very active in Albany about this. And actually, they've made some headway today. I don't know if anyone's seen the news, but there's been some discussion of pulling back on this in the budget for now. But the PTAs, parent-teacher associations in New York State, have been very active up in Albany advocating to slow this down in the hopes of not doing it. And there's a reason for that. They understand. They understand that you can't do something like this without slowing it down, researching it, providing a very clear-cut definition of what everything is, providing education for those that educate our kids, providing education for the kids and the families. And also, how about you tell us what you're doing with the money? Because he hasn't done that yet. He's told us that he's going to allocate it towards the MTA. Oh, that's wonderful. So now the MTA is going to be getting funded on the backs of recreational marijuana in our state. You know, it's poorly done, and this is our local way of saying we don't like it, we don't want it, we want to slow it down, and we want it to be well researched. So this is not really about, you know, I don't think anyone here feels like we're trying to go after a certain group of people. We're not trying to criminalize this any more than it already currently is. We're just trying to slow this down, do it the right way, provide education. And that's really what this is about. And this is the only real tool that we have in our box right now to kind of slow this down and make it a home rule issue, make it a local issue, since the state is not really allowing us to have any say in that.
I'm going to speak up and just say that I mostly agree with my colleague on most of the points. I do support banning dispensaries in Mount Pleasant. I do support banning the sale and purchase of marijuana in Mount Pleasant. I do support banning public smoking of marijuana in Mount Pleasant. And I do encourage the stiffest penalties for erratic driving for whatever reason. That to me is probably the most frightening aspect of being having substances, including alcohol, available. But if this is legalized, I do not support the criminalization of use and possession by adults. That means over 21 years of age. Use and possession by adults. Okay, that I feel that $1,000 fine and jail time will ruin somebody's life, or you know, creates a us versus them mentality. So, and just about every other point I agree with my colleague, but just not on the use of criminalization of use and possession.
Thank you. Well, while we're giving opinions, I've made it very clear I am adamantly opposed to the legalization of marijuana in town of Mount Pleasant. I'm one voice. That's how I feel about it. For decades, we talk about the effect of smoking cigarettes, how they're dangerous to everyone. We talked about the dangers of alcohol abuse, and we have an opioid epidemic that we are struggling with for years. So now we want to add something else to the pot. Let's make something else legal, something else we have to would be challenged with. Our police, our emergency services do not need another issue like this to contend with. So that's my personal opinion. I am adamantly against legalization, but I'm one vote.
Well, I guess I'm going to pick up on everyone expressing their feelings and their opinions, because I think I have a very valid opinion. I am a public health nurse, a supervising public health nurse. I work for Westchester County Department of Health. I'm also a Narcan educator. I have been a school nurse. I am the parent of 3 grown children and the eldest of 6 grown children that resided in Pleasantville as a child. I commend Pleasantville Strong for being so involved. I realize that throughout Westchester County, we have a crisis with opiates. And I also realize as a nurse and as a public health professional that marijuana continues to be a gateway drug. This board, prior to this year of 2019, set strict regulations on the sale of and the supply of vape supplies within the town of Mount Pleasant. And that was done in Pleasantville also. And I believe the impetus for both of the legislative bodies, both village and town, was to provide protection for our young people. Again, when you look at this current board sitting here, we're in the same mindset. This is the way that we can protect our young people, and they are our future. Do not mean to lecture, but there is an awful lot of substantiated data and research that has been done. And as Colleen, basically said, and I wrote it down, we have to protect our young people, keep it out of their hands for as far away and as long as possible. So I do support this legislation, and I do hope that the state will open up and have discussions, even all the way down to the low level of the Town of Mount Pleasant Town Board. Okay, it's time for all of us elected officials to be involved and to speak our minds. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the son of a police officer. I come from a family of firefighters and police officers, and my biggest fear is, God forbid, someone, and it is a drug, someone gets high and crashes and kills an innocent civilian. So I don't want that to happen. And part of my responsibility as a council member is public safety. And like I said, being the son of a police officer and understanding what a police officer goes through, it's part of my responsibility to make sure nothing happens to an innocent civilian, that someone's on drugs and they can't handle themselves behind the wheel of a car. I couldn't live it myself if, God forbid, something like that happened. And we have to prevent that from happening. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address?
Hi, my name is Heather Kaplan. I live at 191 Madison Avenue in Valhalla. I actually came here to speak about the water issue. I didn't know this was going to be discussed tonight, so I apologize. I didn't prepare anything. I just wanted to agree so much with Francesca and what she said. I have a 6-year-old son who I adore, and even now we sit down and we talk about the dangers of drugs, and we talk about his favorite singer, David Bowie, and what David Bowie did to himself and how he almost died, and how I would never want that to happen to my 6-year-old son. However, marijuana as a criminalization charge is so damaging to our society and our community. Yes, we can keep it out of our town, but why are we criminalizing it so much for adults who are 21 and older, and who this will ruin their lives? It's ruined countless lives. That's all I ask. Let's keep it out of our town, but let's think through the penalty for possession. Please, we don't need to ruin anybody else's lives. And I do think it is our job as parents to educate our kids, and our schools to educate our kids. But please, no more lives need to get ruined over this. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We probably should have also clarified in the beginning that currently, as you may all realize, the state has not passed a law creating the use of recreational marijuana yet. So currently, all laws that were previously on the books are still on the books, and it's, you know, possession at the moment is still illegal. So we're not actually changing that. We're looking to say, if the law is passed to allow recreational marijuana, that we would still want to maintain the criminal offense for possession. And part of the thinking behind that is that all has to be ironed out anyways, about what that means and what kind of offense that means and what sort of penalties that incurs. But the reason behind that, and when you deal with adolescents especially, you have to understand that sales, possession, they're all one and the same. Okay, when kids sell to each other in school, they don't have some big, huge bag, or nowadays they have all kinds of synthetic stuff that they can sell to. It's usually in small amounts that are not usually considered a sales offense. So you have to limit it as best as you can. It is a problem at schools, and I'll tell you, it's not the poor kids who are using and selling these drugs. I can tell you that firsthand, at least in our community. So it's an issue throughout. It's a major issue in schools. And again, you know, our job as a society is to set some values and guidelines. And I really do feel that when we sort of permit and give ease of access to these sort of things, we're sending a very clear message to kids. Trust me when I tell you that when we use the words recreational and when we give access to things like this to adults, it is permission for adolescents. And we will only see a rise in incidents and an increase in issues. I promise you that.
Mr. Supervisor, just one thing on the, it's not a criminal offense. It's a violation. Currently under the New York State law, possession of a certain amount of marijuana is not a criminal offense either. We're not changing that. It's a violation. It wouldn't be on anyone's record. It's a fine, and there's always a potential for a violation for jail, but it never occurs. So you're talking about fining people, or sometimes not, but it's not a criminal act.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to make comment?
So it's Colleen Wagner from Pleasantville. I just wanted to add 3 additional points. The first is there is no statistics that show that, children or youth from lower income families are buying more marijuana than children from, higher income families. The other is that, right now, I agree with you about when we use the word recreational. A lot of the youth, through surveys that we've done, and I work with children, marijuana has become a coping skill. It is not a recreation. Because you open up some activity, it isn't, we have kids that are smoking before school, in school, after school. It's become a coping skill. And I guess lastly, what I wanted to say is, even though the state hasn't done what they may or may not do, I think that our children watch us and take their lead from us. And if we put together something that says, we don't like this, we don't think it's right for children. Again, I agree with what adults do in the privacy of their home. But if we send that message to our children, it's a powerful message. They do look to us as role models. And I think it would be a great thing for this board, to send that message that we're worried about you, and for them to know how scared we are if this is something that would become, could get into their hands more easily. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
A couple of things. First of all, having marijuana be legal does not mean that you think that it's good for children to smoke a lot of pot. Just like alcohol is legal, I don't think it's good for kids to drink a lot of alcohol. But the war on drugs, having drugs be illegal, has not worked. Okay? The kids are using pot, lots of kids. And so again, this is not about trying to kids smoking more. This is about trying to get kids to smoke less with good education. We would have the money and the resources to use if you're not spending money on arresting people and putting people in jail for drugs. You have the money to put toward, and you legalize and you tax. You have money to go towards counseling for kids that are troubled, and turn towards drugs for coping mechanisms. I also have worked with children, and I've also been a lawyer in family court representing juvenile delinquents and abused and neglected children. So having that background, I can still tell you I am more than for legalization, and that it's not that someone said it's not that minority and poor children use more drugs. It's that they're more likely to be arrested and have their lives ruined. That's the equity issue here. Most wealthy kids and wealthy adults get away with it and smoke and are not in any danger of the law. I mean, there are tons of statistics out there that say just how discriminatory these laws are. That's the point, that they're completely discriminatory and they do not work. And finally, for all the statistics that some people gave about things getting worse in the other states, I can give you just as many statistics and reports that say to the contrary, that youth use is not up, traffic accidents are not up, emergency room issues are not worse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to make clear that the data goes both ways, that I am not an advocate for children using more drugs. In fact, the opposite is true. And there are some really good programs out there by the Drug Policy Alliance, for example, that is, which I mentioned in my statements before, about safety first and having what I would call, let me just get the correct word exactly. Sorry, one second. Having realistic conversations with children and not just fear mongering, and giving them the real, if they are going to use what it's going to do to them, and things like that. So there is very good curriculum out there for teaching children to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I want to just say that you're 100% right. There are some really great curriculums out there. There's a lot of great awareness programs and campaigns, ones that have proven very, very successful. But it goes back to my point, and the point that is probably the biggest sticking point for me in this is that the governor has decided to propose legislation without a discussion of that education, without funding that education. And until, in my mind, my personal opinion, until he does, and until the state follows through on that, and they propose common sense legislation that is inclusive of that education, I will not stand for passing a law without that in there. It is going to bring us back into the 1970s and all the alcohol-related deaths that we saw as a result of that without the education campaign. So, you know, to pass a law and then to think about the education later is not the way I choose to operate on this issue. I'd rather fight it now, force them to go back to the table like they are, and have them come back to us with more reasonable legislation. It is absolutely important to include both the discussion and the funding for the educational campaigns in this kind of legislation.
Agreed. Anyone else wish to address the board on this? Or Chief Paul Lever would like to comment on this local law.
Honorable Town Board, thank you for the opportunity to speak, ladies and gentlemen. So currently, I have the opportunity to serve as president of the Westchester County Chiefs of Police Association. And in or around January 18th, the organization made a decision to make a statement. We normally don't make statements, political or otherwise, but all of the membership felt strongly enough that I composed a letter. It was approved by the board, and then we published it. We're strongly vehemently against the legalization of recreational marijuana. We feel that from a public safety standpoint and from a public health standpoint, you know, the police are the first line in mental health for the community also. We see it firsthand. From the traffic safety point of view, there currently is no roadside test for THC. So there's no way to determine roadside if someone is intoxicated by marijuana. So that's going to create big problems. Currently, we have 2 canines that are trained in detection of narcotics and marijuana, along with probably close to well, anywhere between 500 and 1,000 other canines that are trained in New York State are going to be ineffective and have to be retired. But not even talking about the monetary aspect of it, we have enough difficulty dealing with alcohol, people using alcohol and then getting behind the wheel. And to introduce another avenue, another drug to be abused and allow people to drive is unacceptable. If I can address the social aspect of it, Mr. Shafazana made a point before. Unlawful possession of marijuana right now is it's a violation. It's like getting a ticket. The maximum fine is $100. No one's been incarcerated for that. I got some data from our court, so I'm not getting data from all over, but from Mount Pleasant Court, which services the New York State Police, the Westchester County Police, the DEP Police, and the Mount Pleasant Police. And I looked at the majority of those cases. Most of them were disposed of with either a fine, a lot of them were dismissed, and a lot of them were settled by what's called adjournment contemplating dismissal, which means that if someone's not arrested for another offense within 6 months, it's expunged from the record. We have residential treatment facilities, and we have a lot of kids that are minorities up there. There's constantly marijuana taken by staff members up there. They collect it, and we go up and we'll dispose of it for them, but we don't make any arrests up there. We use a lot of discretion when it comes to marijuana. So based on what our judges are doing here, no one's going to jail for that. And it shouldn't be affecting anybody's record. So I believe that's incorrect. We currently have an open container law. So if someone is traveling in a vehicle or in a public area with an open container of alcohol, it's against the town code. I think it would be prudent, and I know this is probably the first step, but it would be prudent to have something that addresses marijuana in the open. The potency of the marijuana today is much more than it was from years past. They are engineering it to have super high levels of THC, and they're refining it into butter and wax and all of these fun things that they're putting into edibles, and they're shaping them like candy. And if you just look at some of the news, and if you don't believe the news, I can tell you from our experience, in a few months ago, we had a 50-something-year-old woman took an edible, a gummy bear, and waited 5 minutes, had no effect. She took a few more. She's overdosed on it. We had to take her to the hospital. As far in my understanding from years past, no one's ever overdosed on marijuana before. So I believe you're taking the right step. I think we do need to discuss it more. And it's a serious issue because our children, this next generation, is our greatest resource. And I think we're throwing them away and putting them at risk if we rush into this. I do believe people have some privacy rights in their own home, but we're talking, we shouldn't be in a rush for this. And how many lives does it take? I've been to houses at 3 a.m. and had to tell parents that their child was dead because from a drinking and driving accident. And I'm tired of it. I remember those like they happened yesterday, and some of them happened close to 30 years ago. And is one death acceptable from marijuana and someone getting behind the wheel? I don't think so. So thank you. If you had any questions, I'll try to answer them best I can. Okay?
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
I do have a quick question, though. I was reading the local law, and it did say something about $1,000 and/or time in jail on the local law. So I'm wondering if that is a mistake, or is it?
Well, I'm not familiar with that. I know from the New York State penal law that the violation is punishable by only a $100 fine, and you can't hold somebody for that either. You're unable to hold them in jail for it. So
Any person who shall violate any provision of this chapter shall be fined an amount not exceeding of $1,000 or be imprisoned in the county jail for a term not exceeding 15 days or both upon conviction of such violation.
I would have mentioned that would be the judge's discretion.
Right. Each day such violation is committed, but that's, each day such violation is committed or permitted to continue shall constitute a separate violation and shall be punishable as such
There's a
herein.
little nuance in the state law. Marijuana, not to the public is, like you said, a $100 fine and no jail time, potential.
Correct.
Marijuana that's out in the public, whether someone's smoking it, whether it's in someone's hand or something, then it becomes.
So smoking in public is a misdemeanor.
Yeah, and then it usually gets reduced anyway to the violation.
Well, the district attorney's office has made the decision, at least in Westchester County, that they're not going to prosecute unlawful possession, and they were going to reduce smoking in public or the misdemeanor down to a violation. That's currently what their position is right now.
I mean, you have discretion on what you would want the potential penalty to be. As a former prosecutor and as a police chief, I've never seen anyone that has a joint or a little amount of drugs go to jail.
One of the other issues that we've run up against is they passed something called Raise the Age. So the age of responsibility in New York State has gone from 16 to 17. And now in October of this year, it's going to go up to 18 years old. So now if possession by an adult is okay at 21, if this does pass, then anyone from 13 to 21 is going to be a juvenile. There's not really going to be, there'll be no penalty at all, or nothing to dissuade a juvenile from possessing marijuana at all. And I think that's what we also might need to address that also. And I don't know if that's something that we can do in a local ordinance.
Can I ask our council to just clarify?
Sure.
I see in this potential local law, section 134-2, unlawful possession of marijuana, and it goes through, no person shall, 1, knowingly and unlawfully possess marijuana within the corporate limits of the town of Mount Pleasant, or 2, knowingly and unlawfully possess marijuana in a public place, and such marijuana is burning or open to public view within the corporate limits of the town of Mount Pleasant. I find it interesting that that is the paragraph right before penalties for offenses. So just to support what you just said to us, Mr. Shefazada, 134-3 says penalties for offenses. And that is where Ms. Hagedis did say, this chapter shall be fined in an amount not exceeding $1,000. So is it clear in I need to have it clear in my head that what 134, 134-2, 134-3 follows. So in my head, 134-2 is open use of possession of marijuana, and the fines associated with it, the penalties, follow that, not what you were saying before as far as low levels of possession to be a fine with no court time. Is that correct?
It could be both.
It could be both. Okay. All right.
So there's two instances. You can have it in your pocket,
Mm-hmm.
and for some reason, someone is arrested for whatever. They can find the marijuana in your pocket when you're going to jail, and then there would be another offense potentially.
I see.
It could be
Okay.
under the state law,
Mhm.
or it could be under local law. And the penalties would be slightly different. It could be someone smoking a joint in public and a police officer seeing that person. So there's a number of different scenarios.
Okay.
And there's a number of different penalties under the state law also, with fines and up to jail time too. But marijuana, it's generally dealt with either with an ACD, as the chief said, or a small fine, or dismissed outright.
Okay. That's, I just wanted clarification on that. Generally, a small fine as ACD or dismissed by the court. Okay. Thank you. I think
Anyone
some.
else wish to talk on this topic?
Okay.
Board members have any other comments?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved to close the public hearing.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second.
second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 15919, creating Chapter 134, dealing with possession distribution, local law number 3, 2019. Need a motion?
Motion to pass.
Motion by Mr. DiPaolo,
Second.
second by Ms. Smalley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to say no unless the possession and is reworked. So I'm going to vote no.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is the amend the official map of the town of Mount Pleasant by amending the designation of the property located at 6 Liberty Street in Hawthorne from an R10 to a CNR zone. Existing property is right behind the, that's a, what is that, a Getty gas station on
No,
Palmer
that's a
Street,
B.
I think it is?
Oh, a Getty?
The property backs up to existing residential. BP.
It's a BP.
Directly north of this particular property, that property extends further east into the CNR. It becomes into the residential district pretty much equal to this request here on this particular property. I would ask the town clerk to read the notice.
Please take notice that the Town Board of the Town of Mount Pleasant, New York, shall conduct a public hearing at the Town Hall on the 12th day of March 2019 at 8:00 p.m. to discuss a proposed amendment to the official town map, which will amend the official map of the Town of Mount Pleasant to expand the CNR to the property located at 6 Liberty Street, Hawthorne, New York. Please take further notice, the proposed change of the official map is available for review in the town clerk's office. Please take further notice that at the public hearing, said proposed amendment and opportunity to be heard in regards thereto will then and there be given to those favoring passage of such proposed amendment and also those opposed thereto. Susan Marmol, Town Clerk, Town of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you.
Hi.
I assume you want to speak on this?
Well, Mayor Carl and members of the board, I'm here if you have any questions. And basically, it's a piece of property that's 25 by 100.
I know we know you, but if you could just state your name for the.
Oh, yeah, Edward Swaby. And I'm here for Gisandi Properties. And so basically, it's a piece of property. It's very small. It's just 25 by 100. It's a non-usable piece by itself. And it borders on a residential property. Right now, it's R10. And we went to the planning, you directed us to the planning board. And we went there and they found no objection to it. They approved that we could do this, and we're just coming back to you to make it official. So.
I have a question.
Sure.
The recommendation by the planning board, do you have any objection to the letter that was submitted to us?
I don't know. They submitted a lot of letters.
They didn't recommend approval of this.
They didn't?
So it's,
This approval is strictly removing the CNR line. This has nothing to do with the building itself.
so I have the right.
There's a memo from the building inspector and Pat Cleary that there were some recommendations to be made to move the line. They were okay with that. I believe there were some other potential changes related to setbacks being changed, and that they did not recommend you do at this time, and that's not part of the potential change. All you're doing is shifting the line slightly.
That would be site plan approval, which would be a planning board obligation.
That letter is also considerably old too. It's from 2016.
So all you're doing is moving the line.
All right, thanks for the clarification. I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions on this particular piece of property? They're welcome to ask questions.
Ken Noonan, Valhalla. This proposal that you have, isn't this spot zoning, which is illegal?
It's expanding an existing zone. This will match up to a property just north of this, on the opposite side of the street, basically. Not a spot zone. It's expanding an existing zone. If we were taking that piece of property by itself and rezoning it, it would be different, but this is expanding an existing CNR zone.
But you are taking that little piece of property, which is zoned R10, and you're rezoning it to CNR.
Combining it with the existing CNR property.
Spot zoning is a complicated issue. To explain it and discuss it is impossible. And I don't believe this would be spot zoning.
Well, according to the definition of spot zoning, it sure sounds like spot zoning.
There's about 50 years of case law on spot zoning in the state. Discussing. So one definition, I don't know where you're getting it from. If you look at it on rezoning a property, like say you take something and one piece of property, two Washington Avenue made up. Say I'm going to make that now a residential zone. That would be spot zoning. has to be consistent with your master plan, consistent with your zoning. Here, the planning board looked at it. The area in question is right next to a CNR zone. It abuts a CNR zone. It's simply expanding the CNR zone. So it's not a typical situation where you're just taking a piece of property and rezoning it. They looked at it closely and they're expanding an existing zone that's contiguous. So it's a little, it's not, it wouldn't, I don't believe, fit within that definition. And the decades of common law.
Well,
We can debate that if you want.
well, it is it's a complicated issue. I know that, but has all this been discussed and
This is why I went to the planning board for their recommendation and review.
well, according to what I'm looking at, and I guess this is the memorandum that you're all referring to from the planning board. I have to agree with Mr. Cieliano that it's not approved. And I'll just, if you'll indulge me, I'll just read the last paragraph. It says, therefore, the planning board finds that the creation of zoning to accommodate senior housing is appropriate and in fact necessary. That's fine. And the establishment of the use in a CNR zone district generally may also be appropriate. However, due to the varied distribution of the CNR zones in town and the unique and specific design criteria associated with senior housing, it is recommended that a more comprehensive and global evaluation of the proposal be undertaken to assure that if the proposed zoning were adopted, it would fully accommodate the senior housing market requirements, the needs of seniors living in these units, that significant adverse, here's the part that's important, that significant adverse impacts are mitigated and that the zoning would be appropriate in all applicable areas of the town and not simply limited to the Liberty Street area. Now, from what I'm gathering about this, if you're making changes to accommodate senior housing.
They're not.
That's not what
We're not.
That's the whole point.
Well, but you are. You're gonna.
No, you're not. Senior housing is not a permitted use thing. They're changing, they're expanding the CNR zone. CNR does not allow, I don't believe it allows senior right now. There's other things they want, which is setback issues, and that's what the planning board is saying needs to be looked at more comprehensively, which is being looked at more comprehensively in the master plan review by Pat Cleary and the planning board. So what, that is not being done. So they're not accommodating a specific property to change. They don't want to say senior housing is permitted in all CNR zone now. They're saying don't do that, and they're not doing it. Not even consider it.
Well, I think, yeah.
It's a nuance.
But also, you know, there's three issues that they're talking about here, and one is let's see, establishing. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, one of them is rezone 25-foot by 100-foot parcel from R10 to CNR. I'm assuming that that's part of this as well. They're saying that it really needs to be looked at because once you know if you're going to move a line for this developer the way you were intending to do it, it sets a kind of a dangerous precedent for doing this for other developers in other areas of the town.
The other properties would have to meet those requirements. It would have to be the same situation. We've looked at all CNR zones in the town. This is not a common issue where you have to move a line into a residential district. If it was, it would be a whole different story. This is a specific parcel here that would benefit by moving that line into that R10 district.
And it's consistent with existing zoning, neighboring properties. In other words, you're not taking them in the middle of a residential zone, all of a sudden making it a commercial zone. That's not what they're doing.
But how is this serving the general welfare of the community to make a move like this? That's part of it also. That when you're changing the zoning like this, it should have some benefit to the general community.
Well, this is why we're here. The planning board has reviewed this, our planning consultants reviewed this, the town board has reviewed it, and now we feel this is a smart move to move forward with moving this line so that the next step is they have to go to the planning board to get site plan approval for whatever they want to put there.
Mhm.
Without this move, they can't go any further.
Yeah, I'm looking at this too. I remember seeing this property. It's on a corner
Mhm.
on Liberty Street. Right across the street from it is a commercial property where the CNR zone is.
Mhm.
The residential portion isn't up the street, is up the street that's away from the zone. It's currently a sort of a commercial right behind the Citgo. It's a big building. It's not a residential use right now. So the planning board looked at this and said it makes sense that the CNR zone just be expanded slightly to this one property because it's really not a residential use kind of piece of land or piece of property, and it wouldn't, and the residential is further up the hill. So that was the, I wasn't at every planning board meeting listening to this, but that was sort of the analysis that went on.
As an R10 district, as an R10 piece of property, it's pretty much, it's useless.
Yeah, no one's gonna wanna live next to a gas station.
It could, first of all, it cannot be developed as is
Yeah.
for any purpose.
So what would be the setback requirement for the senior housing from that,
That is not the
property?
topic now. That's a topic that'll be discussed in the planning board.
Well,
And there'll be
suppose
public
people in
hearing.
the R10 zone don't want to live next to a senior housing unit.
There'll be a public
No, no.
hearing where all these issues
No.
will be discussed.
Uh-huh.
The public will be able to voice their opinion on this to the planning board. That's why the planning board exists.
Well, based on, this last paragraph of the memorandum from the planning board, I don't think that they're saying go ahead on this rezoning. I think we're talking.
You're
about-
welcome to your opinion.
We're talking about spot zoning.
That's fine.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
I'll tell you all that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, yeah, so, yeah, I don't want to go any further than we have to. Just to clarify, we did a report, okay, 47-page report before the master plan started out, and we made a couple of presentations before the planning board, and they approved some of the things that we had done, but they are not the approving agency. They can make recommendations. And it's up to the town board to decide if what we're doing is acceptable or not. And we're probably not done with the planning board. I don't know. I mean,
No.
we'll probably
This
find out.
this is just moving the line.
Right,
That's all you're doing.
right. And
You're not
the-
approving any
no,
senior housing project, you're not approving any development, you're not approving anything.
Right.
It's moving the line. If there's a plan, I know there's been a number of plans, I've seen them,
Yeah.
of a potential proposal there, that would have to go through the process. There have to be evaluation of whether it's permitted use or not by the building department. It'll go to the planning board and be reviewed, public hearings, reviewed by every department to see if it's something that you want there.
right.
And you could have a house there. I mean, in CNR, you're allowed to have a house there. It could be a multifamily house, it could be a number of things.
Well,
But nothing's being approved tonight for a development.
right. And we're just hoping that in the future it gets approved because as a transitional kind of use, because what you have right now is commercial and we're next to a residential area, and this is a small residential building. That's what we're going to, and so we're hoping that, in fact, when we did, the basis of this report was that this is one of the very few areas where it looks like a more transitional area than other places. And we have, there's at least 8 places in Mount Pleasant that look like that they would be able to do the same kind of development. So, I mean, because I don't want it to be looked at like it's something special. It's not. It's a use that is needed. I mean, while we've been languishing, waiting for this to be approved, 200 units have been built on Washington Street in Pleasantville, and so we're trying to help Mount Pleasant to catch up.
Not to belabor this, but currently it sits as a semi-vacant, overgrown property that is an eyesore. And I, for one, if we can make that something important to our town, whether it be senior housing or some kind of living area where people can commute to work easily or whatever that might be. It's certainly a need in our town. And if we can dress it up and start to make that area look nicer, which has really been a goal of the board, but I think the community has been vocal about that. I'm certainly supportive of it. And if it means moving a parcel, I'm okay with that. I just want to point out in that memo back that we're referencing from 2016, the paragraph that Mr. Noonan quoted up here really is referring to the previous paragraph, which is specifically talking about the senior housing issue. That's my interpretation of it. It's not addressing that there is any issue with the actual rezone of that parcel. It's more specifically speaking about the senior housing zoning issue within the town and how that should be applicable across all areas. So just realize we're not talking about senior housing in this particular resolution.
Right.
I agree also, it's out of date. I mean,
It is out of date.
we've had subsequent memos from Pat Cleary and from the planning board that were more supportive than that.
I believe this memo is from, as I read it, August 15th, 2016, when the ideas and the impetus for the revised master plan were in the infancy. And we've come a long way since then, and we've expanded on what we feel as a board would be appropriate. I, for one, I'm in favor of this for the reasons Mr. DiPaolo mentioned, but also because this particular developer has a vision, as we all do, on the plan to make our town more open to those that will reside here in smaller structures than private homes, who will utilize Mount Pleasant to travel to their professional jobs, either in the city or with our new development going on in many different areas that most of you know about, the North 60, Regeneron, Pace University, EF Academy, Pepsi. Many of the businesses that support our infrastructure are expanding appropriately, not overwhelmingly, but appropriately. And this is something that I feel this small change of moving this R10 to the CNR zone is more than appropriate. I do recommend that you continue with the planning board and if necessary, the zoning board. And I look forward to see how this develops. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think if your future proposal was for an office building abutting a residential zone, it would be we'd be talking differently. But you're trying to put residential abutting residential.
Right. And it's really not a great place for a commercial enterprise. It's not on the main drag. It's away from the corner. The gas station is on the corner, and it's kind of, you would never put a foot traffic kind of place there, for instance, like Gordo's down the street or whatever.
So can we move
Any other
on?
questions?
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments on this?
Sir, could you just sign in, please?
Be there no further comments, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second?
second by Ms. Haggis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 160-19. This is for 6 Liberty Street, moving the R10 zone, moving the CNR zone into the R10 zone. You need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Haggis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to the supervisor's report. On that same street, 500 Commerce Street, there's an application from Demoski Architecture for site plan review and special use permit that we would need to recommend to the planning board for further discussion. The town board has reviewed this project. We have this is where Victor's restaurant is right now, which is just north of the property we were just discussing. So this resolution would approve recommending this to the planning board for their review.
I move to approve.
Motion by Ms. Haggis,
Second.
second by Mr. Saliano. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is, I think we've done this will be the third or fourth time, authorization to submit home rule request for hotel motel tax legislation. our previous meeting, we had approved a resolution, but the timing of it was prior to the House and the Senate had moved it for approval. Our resolution cannot be before they create the law. So now we need a new resolution approving the home rule request for the 3% hotel motel tax legislation.
Right, and they even have bill numbers now. Senator Harkam has S3816 and Assemblyman Abenanti has A15006 for that.
This resolution will move this forward.
I move to approve, please.
Motion by Ms. Hagedis,
I'll second. I think you guys are trying to get me on record several times to create taxes, which is against every nerve, bone, and joint in my body, but I will second it.
so at least it's a tax that doesn't really affect our residents.
No, it contributes to the town.
Or our budget.
And unfortunately, as you said, Mr. Fulgenzi, we've been dealing with this for, at least 3 years.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, now it's real.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Authorization for Girl Scout members, this is a tough one, to set up cookie booths at the Valhalla train station, March through May 2019.
I have to say
You can
yes to
discuss
this.
further if you wish.
I want to know if they have do-si-dos.
I move for approval, having been a former Assistant Girl Scout leader.
Motion by Ms. Smalley.
I second that.
Isn't today the founders?
Anniversary.
Yep.
Yeah,
Today's what?
The anniversary of the Girl Scouts.
that's right. Juliette Lowe, for all you Girl Scouts out there.
Good timing to do this. Second by Ms. Hagedis, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is authorization for a 30-day waiver, notice of liquor license for the Station Boys Incorporated. It's normal procedure with the liquor authority, that we get the 30-day waiver.
Make a motion for approval, please.
Motion by Mr. Saliano,
Second.
second by Mr. DiPaolo, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a block party request, another challenge here for us.
Again.
Okay, where is this?
It's
You have that?
Yep.
The address?
It's Warren Avenue.
Warren?
Warren Avenue.
Avenue. It's going to be on Saturday, July 20th. Request a road closure on Warren Avenue at the Gold Street intersection, as well as Warren Avenue at the Cliff Street intersection. Rain date would be July 27th, would be 11 a.m. to 11 p.m.
And upon approval, the police department and highway department will be notified to assist in this closure.
Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second.
second by Mr. Saliano. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is purchase order for electronic locks. As you may or may not know, most of the doors in the building now have electronic card access. We added some doors downstairs. One is for one of the new offices for the police department. We also put doors in to access the file room and our EOC, the Emergency Operations Center room downstairs. These will put card access to those three rooms. Total cost for this upgrade is $4,958.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. DiPaolo,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Hagedis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is from the building department, a request for International Code Council to review a renovation plan. Total cost of the review is $2,050. Let's see which building it is.
I believe it is.
Got two different ones.
This is for the DEP renovation plan review?
It is DEP Delaware Aqueduct.
Yes.
Review.
Mm-hmm.
You got it. Total cost, I said, $2,050.
Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second.
second by Mr. Saliano. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. As with all these reviews, it is covered in the cost of the permitting process. Next one, also for ICC. This is another review, total cost $4,248. This is for new construction of a commercial building at 143 Broadway in Hawthorne.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. DiPaolo,
Second.
second by Mr. Saliano. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a request to call for a police officer residence-only list. We have 3 or 4 vacancies in the police department through retirements. The town board had made the decision a couple of years ago to hire an additional 5 officers. Unfortunately, we've had retirements that equal pretty much those fire retirements. We need to fill those vacancies now. So this list will give us a list of candidates that are local that we can pick on. This resolution will approve the calling for the residents-only list.
Move for approval, please.
Second, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley, second by Mr. Saliano. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is request from our public sector HR consultant, authorization to create a deputy highway superintendent position. This has already been approved through civil service. It's a new position that we do not have, but we do have the ability to have that position in the highway department. So this resolution will approve the authorization of a deputy highway superintendent position.
I would just add that in our efforts to address what every municipality, including our own, deals with every year in road issues and highway issues, of course, potholes being the most infamous, but there are also other issues and different things that they also do. But to help increase the accountability, to maintain the workflow, we've added staff to the highway department this year to help with that. We're going to be adding funding in years to come. So all in line with that is creating this position, which will help with more accountability there and hopefully address the needs in a more timely and efficient manner. So I would like to make a motion to approve this position.
Motion by Mr. DiPaolo,
I'll second that.
second by Ms. Haggis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Following along those lines, we would wish to appoint Michael Reck. It was a recommendation from the highway department and our interim town engineer and interim superintendent of water and sewer, along with our HR consultant, to approve Michael Reck as deputy highway superintendent position effective March 13th.
Move to approve, please.
Motion by Ms. Haggis,
I'd like to second and just add that Mike has been a longtime member of the department. He is an excellent resource. He's definitely the person for the job, and I don't know that anybody that knows the highway department would disagree.
definitely. Second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is to appoint our town clerk, Susan Marmol, as FOIL officer effective March 13th, 2019. You know the title for you.
Another hat to wear.
More work. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second.
second by Mr. Saliano. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is our investment report. It's unchanged. The current rate of interest is 1.9%. At this time, we have business from the floor. Anyone who wishes to address the board on any town issue is welcome to do so.
I would hope that the decent of you are here to address the water issue.
Can you please sign in if you haven't done so? Great, thank you.
Nicole Celentano, I'm at 99 Westlake Drive in Thornwood. I received the notice in the mail, also saw it on Facebook, and have done a lot of research about it. Actually, I spoke to the Westchester County Department of Health about it a few days ago. You Google it, you find a lot of information on it. Of course, there's no test done in humans, but what they have found in mice is that it can cause cancer. And I think it needs to be addressed by the town. And I have several questions. First of all, what would be the recommendation for filters at home? The big main filter for the house can run a couple $1,000s, just so everyone knows. The smaller filters that have the carbon, Brita, the shower head, the sink, faucet, those haven't been found to take out the haloacidic acids or haloacidic levels. So really, all my research and other people have not found an answer to help with this because people are interested. Unfortunately, a lot of them couldn't make it tonight. So I know that there's been a consulting firm hired to deal with this. I think it needs to be addressed as soon as possible. I did look into getting my water tested for my house. So I was going to put in a filter, get my water tested. I found out that for that level, for the haloacidic, it's $240 per sample. So if I put one filter in my shower, take water from there, it's $250. I mean, this is something that other towns do not have either, these issues. I looked up the water levels for the other towns surrounding us and also like Scarsdale, Croton. I looked up Pleasantville, which is public knowledge because we're Mount Pleasant. I looked up North Castle, Millwood, Chappaqua, and they do not have these levels. Their levels range from anywhere from 3 or 4 to maybe 20. 23 was like the highest I saw. This has been an ongoing issue at our town.
Just one point. All water supply by New York City Water Supply, basically from the town of Mount Pleasant south, has the same issue.
No, I looked up Scarsdale. They do not have that issue.
Anybody who gets water supply from New York City Water Supply.
We get it from
these levels.
the Catskills, from what I was understanding, and Delaware.
There's a number of reservoirs that feed into the Kensico system.
So doing more research and speaking to the person at the town level, David, I think it's David Smith.
It's right there.
Yeah,
Thank
right
you.
there.
Nicole Salentano. I did find out though that other towns, and I did do research into this as well, have a sand filtration system, whereas back in the 90s, Mount Pleasant did not go that route. And our filtration system is not up to par, basically. And now we're seeing the facts. And I have 2 young children at home, and I'm very concerned about my health as well as their health with the showering, because there hasn't been studies done on it. And chlorine and this can cause cancer, and it could go through the pores, and you could breathe it in. So there's a lot of health issues going on. So, okay, so my question is, I have 4 main ones. Okay, so I have bottled water at my house that I've been drinking. But my son goes to school, I fill up his water bottle every day. But, you know, it's eventually going to be nice, and he's going to want to refill it at the water fountains at the school. And I'm concerned about that. Have the schools been tested? I know that there's one water fountain at Columbus that now has a filter on it in the 4th grade wing. But again, that filter doesn't necessarily take this out. So I think we have to go into the schools and have the schools tested, their water, for that. I know they do test for other things. I don't think they test for that. So I think that is very important to do. And then what kind of filters can be put on those water fountains at school? Because we could do whatever we do at our house, but that doesn't change that our kids are at camp in Mount Pleasant, they're at school, you know, they're getting their water from other places. So that's one thing. You know, it's very pricey to do these testing for our own home. And so who's going to pay for that? You know, I'm buying bottled water already to drink. So $250 for one sample. So that's another question. Obviously, what steps are being taken to address this issue? And where is the urgency to it? And also, what can be recommended for filters for home, the sink, the faucet, and the shower? Because my research shows that you really have to get a whole house system to deal with this issue, which can range from anywhere from what I've seen. Others have priced it out. I've priced it out. Can range from close to $2,000 plus. And that's the only thing that has been proven to taken out that in the water. So those are my questions to address.
I would have to ask our town engineer to address these.
Thank you, Ms. Salantano.
Thank you.
Can we go before the consultant goes if we have other?
I actually think it would be really good to hear his perspective, and then I think we'll entertain any other questions you have, absolutely.
Thank you, Honorary Board. Dave Smith, Town Engineer and Interim Superintendent of Water. Just to give you an overview, we are concerned about the notices that we put out. We did, after we had one notice that that went out that exceeded the MCL, which is the maximum contaminant level. We did receive a second level. We did receive this at both the Kensico and the Pecanico water districts. They're two different sources, so we're not sure why both systems are now high on with these acidic gases in this regard right now. So our first step is to reach out to consultants who deal with this every day, who have the knowledge and can bring knowledge from throughout the country to come in and look at. And we've already begun starting to send diagrams of our processes, our lab resorts, our sampling in the districts to find out, one, what's happening here, two, why in two different districts in this area. He did let us know that there are, in their experience, there are a few municipalities in Westchester and in Connecticut that they're working with that are having similar problems. So it's not just Mount Pleasant right now.
Just on that issue, can I ask a quick question? Historically, I don't know, in the last 10, 15 years, have there also been issues like this in other municipalities?
Yeah, there has been. I know Kensico, I don't have the exact date, but one quarter we did exceed and we sent a notice. In Pecanico, we had two other priors. So,
I mean, in other municipalities.
Yes, other municipalities have had them. Just to get back to why other municipalities have lower levels, one is mainly because they do have a filtration. There are, and that's something that we're looking at. And if the consultant there may be other minor treatment techniques that we could do that won't be as costly and can be implemented sooner than going to a full out filtration plant. But the filtration plant in '97 was actually, the design was sent to the health department. At that time, the price tag was $10 million for the treatment plant. The reasons why we didn't proceed was because New York City got a waiver for a filtration rule, and that's why the town didn't proceed. And since that time, we've only had, I'm aware of one instance where we went above the maximum contaminant level.
Can I say something though? I'm sorry. But if you look at the other water sample from, was it 2014 or 2015 that's listed, it's the only one that's really listed right now. That shows all the levels. It was very close. It was like at 58. Which I know 60 is the FDA guideline, but I mean, we're right there. Whereas the other towns, I looked at their past water samples from 2017, around that time, and they're always at they're at 5 or 10 or 11. I think the highest I saw, and I did random towns when I looked at this, you could go to the town's website and look, and the highest I saw was 20 or 23.
Yeah, just to let people know at home that the question was that although we didn't exceed our maximum contaminant level, we were still close or at that high 50 mark, where the maximum contaminant level was 60. So the concern was we're still close to the maximum contaminant level. Go ahead.
Is it possible? Many people are concerned. I've seen Facebook in the last 2 days explode with this. Is it possible to post on the website a map of each water district? Because only certain water districts right now are affected. And not to minimize this, I think you're going to go ahead and address those two water districts, I believe that Kensico and Pecanico, right?
Correct.
That are affected, just to reassure those that aren't affected right now and to be vigilant, that they should remain vigilant on this. But it would be helpful to have a map of the water districts on the website.
Sure, we can do that. And just just give more information to proceed, just so, because I may answer a few more questions that people have before they come up. We did put out an email blast stating that we did our first process to look at this this issue was let's find out what we can do now to help people. So we did find 2 studies that they tested pitchered water with GAC filters, carbon granulated active filters that they said will reduce the HAAs. They didn't name only one study named a specific filter, but they did say they tested a bunch of filters, and they said that on average they reduced 66% of the HAAs. When I contacted NSF, which is the agency that sets standards for filters, they said that their standard requirements 53 addresses HAAs, but no manufacturers come to them to certify. So although these filters may remove them, they haven't come to them and said, can you please certify this that it actually works? I guess there's an expense, and maybe this is not something that is done all the time. So so we have 2 studies that say that these filters do remove these acetic acids, and we have
Reach out to the companies directly, which I have reached out to a couple. They will not verify that it.
Yeah, I actually have. I've been reaching out to, and I have similar instances. So, and that's, I think, because they don't have the certification, or they don't have it specifically certified to where they can't. Yeah, but that's, like I said, we do. Then we rely on studies, and there are published studies that have shown that there are improvements.
Okay, so which one's that? Can you let us know which
Yeah, they're actually on the website right now. The full studies are there for you to look
No,
at.
the studies are there, but I want to know which filter. Because like
There-
I said,
if you
I
look-
install filter and then bring the water to it's the Westchester
County Health Department.
Laboratories of Research is located in Valhalla.
Yeah.
And they can test your water. It's $240, but they can test the water.
Yeah,
And I don't want to go ahead and buy this and that filter and this filter and then test the water and spend $240 or just to come out positive.
Yeah.
I would like a list. So maybe you guys should go.
We are
We,
working on this. It's not
yeah.
something we're ignoring. It's not something we can instantly solve.
Yeah.
But I want
It's-
to insist, but I.
Excuse me a minute, let me finish. I listened to you. We're trying to get the information. We want clear information. We don't want to give you information that's not exact. We want to do the research and get the proper information to give to the public.
Okay.
That we're working on.
But what can we do tomorrow? Because right now my kids are brushing their teeth with Poland Spring bottle of water, okay? And I'm limiting their showers. Honestly, I'm concerned.
If you look at the study itself, it shows at least one manufacturer that is listed in there. That lists, yeah. So, and that's readily available. It's actually a popular manufacturer. I can't disclose anywhere else, but
Begin with a D and end with an A.
yeah, I think you were correct. Yeah. The second part that we're besides concentrating on getting the information that the consultants need to help us with the process, is we are looking at the potential risks. So now we focused on that. So there are just for example, there are a bunch of other organizations that we reached out to that we're getting back some information that we can provide, but the information we're receiving is it's not as significant as it's being portrayed right now. But I don't want to provide numbers until I have the absolute, feel confident that those numbers are there. But we do want to provide you with the potential for risks that are potentially can harm people. So that's what we're proceeding with. One, we're getting information, working it on a macro level. And just to let you know that when we did get our first notice, the 2 things that assist, besides, there's actually 3 things that affect byproducts. One is the organic material, natural organic material in the water supply, which we have no control of unless we filter. We don't have a filter. The second thing is the age of the water. So the longer the water is in the system, the higher the byproducts can be created. And the third thing is the higher levels of chlorine that are in the system, the higher levels of byproduct that can be created. So what we did do is we lowered our chlorine levels down, and we we steadfastly looked at all the concentrations in the district because one thing we don't want to do when they talk about this is that if you reduce your chlorine levels down too far, then you have a bacteria and you have a critical critical health concern, which is people can get very sick from that. And that's a lot more significant than the byproducts we're looking at right now. So we've lowered our chlorine as low as we feel comfortably to make sure we have enough chlorine in the system. We are flushing. We did purchase some hydrant flushers that'll work at night automatically. We've been doing that also. But we're still seeing high levels right now, unusual high levels. So that's just.
For our town. I'm sorry, they are unusual right now, but they've always been teetering on that FDA mark, and that's not even like they say any levels is not good.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll provide you with more. And like I said, I have some information saying what the potential risks are, and we will share that with the residents. We'll put it on our websites just to make sure that people are aware of what we're actually looking at, the risks we're looking at. Also, and the final thing though is when we proceed this route, and at the end of the day, if the residents of the town prefer to have a filter treatment plant and want to invest, and your constituents want that, and you see that they have, you also want to follow that suit, then we'll proceed with putting in a filtration plant. We're not opposed to doing that. It's just a matter of before we put that kind of substantial investment, we want to make sure that we're looking at the whole picture. That's not going to stop us from doing whatever we need to do, and we are very concerned about this. One thing we don't want to do is be a town where our residents are afraid to drink the water that's coming out of their faucets. So the plan now, just to recap, is to one, provide an immediate benefit or immediate mitigation, which is these pitchers, which the refrigerated pitchers. Number two is get the information to the consultants to derive a plan, whether it's short-term, long-term, and then number three, also get the information on how significant these haloacidic acids are, the potential risks for them. And then once this information is out, we'll, like always, we'll proceed forward. We can come back to the town board and have continual meetings on this, of course.
David, on one thing, do any of our records show that during times of higher use of water, that these rates drop?
Traditionally, in the wintertime, the rates, the byproduct levels go down. That's because of the temperature of the water. And it's just been unusual. And that's why we're taking the steps of going to get outside help, because this time of year, we should be getting significantly lower results. And the way the MCL or the standards calculated, you calculate it on a 4-quarter average, a running year. So the last 2 quarters is when we should traditionally have our lower months, so that'll balance out the higher months, and we aren't seeing that. So that's why we believe there's something else going on here. Now, just to get an idea that we are getting water that's blended from Delaware and the Kensico Dam. So the only key thing between these two water districts is that they are surface waters in this area. So, like I said, everyone I've talked to that don't understand why this is happening with 2 separate water districts that are 2 separate waters. I mean, Pecanico is 4 lakes, within Rockefeller's and the state park. So there's not much around there besides wooded lands. So, and we all know that the Kensico Dam is pretty much surrounded by residential, but pretty much forested areas. So this situation has us baffled now. We did also send out our latest rounds of samples should be coming back within the next week or 2 weeks. We did send it out to 3 different labs. We did multiple sets, 3 different labs, just to eliminate our lab being a source of the error. So like I said, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to find out what the cause is here. But but we're, like I said, we're not sure what that is. But in the meantime, we'll provide whatever information we can to assist the residents. And also, I think, there could be a chance that, it may be an environmental thing that disappears, and our levels go just below the MCLs again. But this may be something that, sparks conversation that we don't want to have to be back in this situation again. So at least we could look at that as a positive, and at least maybe we do have this issue, we could go to the state and say, because a lot of times the state provides funding for water districts that have these type of issues. So like I said, we're here to help, and we're here to get whatever experts we need to solve this problem.
Pleasantville gets its water from a different filtration. So all those listed that are the Pleasantville area, Lake Street or whatever, all the ones that were listed that were Pleasantville, they had a different filtration system or plant. So.
Correct. A lot of the other water districts buy their water from other sources, and that one being the major sources, Newcastle and Briarcliff. Newcastle has, back in that time period, they actually had an issue with turbidity, and it forced them to spend, a lot of money to put that filtration system in, and their rates are, pretty high. I mean, they've been high since 2005, I believe, significantly higher. So just to pay for that infrastructure, and then so that there is a cost associated with it. But like I said, their problem wasn't haloacidic acids; it was turbidity. So which is just the coloration in the water, which can mask bacteria. So they were required to do this. So it wasn't just for this sole reason, it was for other reasons.
Yeah, I just want to make it known because you think of Mount Pleasant, you think we'd all be getting our water filtered at the same site, and that's not happening. So
Right.
I just wanted to throw that out there that it, part of the water goes through a different filtration system, whereas the Botanico
And Kensico.
Kensico were the same one.
No, they're two different ones.
No,
That's the weird
Botanical
thing.
has its own lakes that treats, and
Are they treated similarly though?
no, different. Actually, Botanical is a filter plant. It's just not. It is a media filter plant, and that's why we're saying we don't know why this is happening. Two different types of systems, two different types of water sources, but similarly higher. And unfortunately, Botanico's byproducts are much higher than Kensico. So we don't, like I said, we're not aware of it, and the experts that we're reaching out to are scratching their heads also. But it just means that we have to spend a little more time figuring out what's going on. But in the meantime, also try and provide the information needed for our residents to feel safe and to have their families feel safe also.
So, I probably echo the very same sentiments as a lot of people here, little kids and worried about water. And I've spent some late nights researching on the internet, which can be both very dangerous and also helpful. So what I heard you say earlier is that you have started to flush hydrants and lower some chlorine levels to mitigate that. So when would we maybe know if those sort of mitigation measures might be effective? I don't know if that's something that's immediate.
Yeah, no, and that's pretty much what we did the first go around. Like I said, those are traditional, almost like initial shots to do, and you should see a drop, but we haven't gotten that. So we know that if we still flush and still keep our chlorine lower, that the levels are remaining where they're at right now. So that's why we need to, either one or two things happens is that, and we initially thought that Kensico's, which it may be just two separate things happening as far as the two different water districts. What had happened with the Kensico water is because the DEP was doing work on the Delaware Aqueduct, they were bringing in water from the West Branch and the Croton to supply water to the Kensico Dam. And that's the water we're receiving. So we initially think that, because that's been happening for some period of time now, is that that's what we're getting. We're getting that plug of water coming in from the area that has different organic material in it. That may be the case for Kensico, and we may be seeing as the samples come back and our results come back, we may see that it was, an issue that happened because of other water being delivered to us. And that may be the case, but we don't have that assurance right now.
David, in my discussion today with New York City Water Supply, we discussed why something like this can happen. We discussed the fact that the excessive amount of rains that we've had in the past few years is not what we're used to having. You have ground that gets saturated. The rain does not go through the natural filtration process of the ground and then flow to the reservoirs. What's happening is through saturation, the water is running off of the ground through the leaves and branches and whatever is on the ground and entering the reservoir system. And he believes that this could be a major cause. This is what we're seeing on Pecanico. That's strictly fed by rainwater running down the hill into the dams.
Correct. And what we can do is go back to those periods of time that we did exceed and check out what the rainfall was that year and find out if there's a correlation or not. But that could be the case. It could be that our sand filter is the entire conveyance into those dams. And if our natural sand filter is overloaded with water, it's not actually performing its function. So that could be the case also. The Kensico and Pecanico water districts are tested quarterly, and the other districts are tested annually. So we do 4 samples a year. This year, actually, we'll be doing 8 in Kensico because we have to do sampling for EPA. It was just a coincidence, so it actually staggered. So we'll have a lot more data to share and to look at.
In light of the failing grades that we've got, are you going to test more frequently now until you get it back to an acceptable level?
Just for the people at home to know that the question was, are we going to test more frequently? Because we had 2 exceedance of the standard. The state doesn't require us to do extra testing. However, I know in Kensico we are doing, we're actually doubling up the tests specifically because we are doing a routine testing for EPA. So this year we'll have much more sampling done, but it's not required by the EPA and by the health department.
I'm sorry, so that's a little bit vague. I'm trying to figure out if we're going to test until we find it's back in acceptable levels. So like just more frequently and doesn't really give me any peace of mind.
Yeah, no, we're only required to do 4 tests. Required, yes, correct. But we will be doing more in Kensico. We're not doing, we haven't planned to do more than 4 tests right now. But we are, like I said, this year for Kensico, we are testing more often than normal, but we're only required to do 4. We don't plan on doing more than what's required, but we are doing 8 samples this year. We're hoping that those samples start coming back at acceptable levels.
Right, you don't know where it's coming from. It's been out of spec for a while. So that would be.
Can I ask you if you want to?
Maybe come up because we have other people at home who want to talk. Yeah, why don't you come up and ask it because there's other people that are probably watching at home.
Can you please sign in before you leave?
Is there anyone else who will have a question? Could you please sign in and wait your turn? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Kala Mishra. I'm from 18 Birchbrook Drive. I think we're on a reactive mode right now. Oh, sorry. We don't know the source. We don't know why, the levels are high. How long has it been since it's been high? It's been on the upper range for a while. I'm going to say probably a few years. Either EPA or FDA created this range for a reason. So if it's been higher, I think, someone should have raised the flag and should have started looking into it. Now we're reactive. If it's high, it's high. It's out of tolerance. So if we've been drinking this water for a few years, we don't know what kind of effect it's going to have because, like Nicole said, it hasn't been tested on humans, but it's shown that on mice that it causes inflammation. Eventually, it causes cancer. So I'm concerned, but the letter that went out to the homes, I think it was poor. It didn't say what we could do at home to, take immediate action, because the town's not going to resolve this problem right away. So have we reached out to the EPA or FDA to, get recommendations from them? What can they do to help us out? What can the town or, to help the residents? So those are some of the, concerns I have. I don't think this issue just came up yesterday. I wish I did more research before I came here, but, are we treating our lawns too much? Or, are we putting something in our environment that's causing this? Because it's kind of isolated to this area. If our neighboring towns don't have this issue, why do we have this issue? Why can't we see what they're doing right and what we're not doing? Because, I'm trying to stay away from using bottled water because, my background shows that, I worked in packaging. Eventually, whatever you put the product in, it's going to leach in. You see bottled products out in the supermarket or anywhere that's in the heat, it's going to leach into it. When you consume it, it's going to get into your body. So now I've been telling my kids, take water, fill up the water bottle. Don't use plastic bottles even to it. We're using, stainless steel, all that stuff. But, I'm concerned as a resident of Mount Pleasant. I think, maybe there should be another letter that should go out recommending what residents should do. My kids drink water at school. They swim at the swimming pool. I use the same water at my swimming pool. I mean, they created chlorinated water to kill bacteria. But when you have too much, it's bad for you. I didn't watch this documentary because of this, but I've seen it a few years ago. When they started using chlorinated water, it was to kill bacteria, but at high levels, it does bad things, like cause cancer. So, I think we're looking for answers, but we're seeing like more of reactive actions than proactive. Just because you tested it, it rained, extra last 2 years, but you've been seeing that's going up and up for a few years, you're like, keeping your fingers crossed that it's going to come within spec, but it's still going to be high. I don't want to end up like, using, bottled water to brush my teeth or my kids, have them not take showers. So I think like, I would expect more people to come be concerned because we deserve clean water. We don't want, I grew up in Michigan, I didn't grow up in Flint, but we don't want it to turn into a Flint issue either, so I'm not a scientist, but I don't know what kind of damage it could do to our kids, I have little children. If I had an infant, I probably wouldn't, hearing all this, I wouldn't use that water to feed, make formula. And right now, I don't know if I should be, continue to giving my kids tap water. And schools, I have kids who go to school here, and it's, I think we need to reach out to federal levels and see what they recommend and start taking actions immediately.
To assure you, we're taking this very serious. We're trying to get professional advice on this outside of, to rely on everything David says to us, but we're looking into New York City water supply, what they're doing, what they can do for us. We're not taking this lightly at all. It's very serious for us, and we will find a solution.
Okay, and the water that we're testing, is it from residents' homes as well? Because I'd love to get my water tested.
Yeah, I mean, I can actually address that. The letter that you received is actually a mandated letter that the state approves for us to send out. We can provide additional letters for additional information. However, before I give out more information, I want to make sure that the information is correct. One thing, if you did do some research online, is very difficult to find out what really is happening with these haloacidic acids. What we'll do is we will be providing those studies that we feel will assist us in our decisions, and we'll be providing them on our website so that you don't have to do the research. And like I said, before you go off on what could be happening and what's the level of risk here, we want to provide some information on that, because we all feel that if you drink this water at a certain level, you're immediately going to get cancer. The stuff we've been looking at doesn't seem to be the case. However, I'm going to refrain from giving that information out until I know what the actual numbers are. Just to give you an idea on the tests, we're required to take 4 tests quarterly. It's based on a water quality model that models the 4 potential worst case areas in the district. Out of those 4 worst case areas, one of them was high for the haloacidic acids. The requirement of those 4 locations is to do almost like your worst case scenario, where if it's exceedingly high here, then most of the other areas in the district will be lower. That's the understanding, and that's done through a modeling. It's done through approval from the county, which is also given through the state. So your house may not be at those areas. The idea is likely that your levels will be lower than that, not higher. This is not random testing in people's houses. The tests.
I'm just asking you, maybe we should do some random testing at people's houses. Maybe as a board, maybe this is something we could devote some funding to.
Okay, well, that's always, like I said,
I'd be curious to know if, house water can be affected by things that are internal to the house and the piping. This is a water source?
Correct, we're correct. This is actually the distribution system that we're getting water from. And you are correct. There people may not have the water could be longer in those areas as far as the age is considered. So it might not be a good representation of all the homes in the town. But that's a request you can put in, and we can talk about it.
Why don't we do the schools then? There are one's in Horton, one's in Dornwood, one's in Protuer.
Well,
we're not. Yeah.
I understand your point, Nicole, but I also know that coming from my end of it as being a senior citizen, we'd have to include facilities that service our seniors as well. But again, I go back to David. We will discuss this as a board at some other time.
I mean, like I said, everything is on the table. We're not excluding anything.
Yeah.
And like I said, we want to make sure that we cover our bases. We're still early in the game right now as far as where we're at in the process. But one thing I want to do is that our levels haven't been continually going higher. Our levels have been pretty level annually. So it's not like all of a sudden every year they've been going up, and all of a sudden, boom, now we're high and haven't done anything for years. Our levels have been considerably traditionally around that mark, and now we've had an unusual 2 events that we don't know what's happening here. So it's
Because in October, letter went out, right? October letter went out.
the first letter went out. That's when we exceeded, because that quarter was a lot higher than that same quarter the year before.
For October, when were those samples done?
Probably the month. I think it was. We have them here. Hold on.
Because it sounds like it's been going on over a year then.
No, it's what happens. It's a running yearly average. So if you get 1 month that's exceedingly high, then that could trip the annual average. It doesn't mean that the whole year it's been high. It's just for that year. So yeah, we take samples in February, May, August, and November. So that October was from the August sample. This last notice was from the November sample. So now we resampled in February last month, and we're waiting those results to come back. So like I said, if it's a running annual average, and our annual average has been at below 60 micrograms per liter. So like I said, out of all these, the time that I'm aware of, there's only been one other notice that has happened that we've exceeded. I don't have that exact year, but I could get that and put that actual notice on the website. But just to let you know, so we had one, and then it may have been 2007. I'm not, because I'm getting confused with Mechanico. But then we had some, a few, definitely a few years or substantial length of time, and now we've just gotten 2. So it's like we were exceeded, sent out the notice, and then it went back down. This is the first time it's exceeded and stayed high.
And when we say went back down, it went back down to like 58.
Yeah, which is
It never went back down to like other towns where it's like 5, 10, 20. I mean, we're always teetering around that 60 mark.
Yeah, and just to let you know that the 60 mark is what EPA recommends as the allowable threshold. And like I said, we have that information we'll share with you. Like I said, we'll give you the numbers that the EPA decided on and what the risks are. And like I said, once we share those numbers, we'll have at least a lot more understanding of what we're looking at. Right now, we think that, it could be, only after a couple quarters that we're going to have a substantial risk. The numbers that I'm seeing isn't showing that. So I just think that when we do see those numbers, we'll have all the facts. We'll see all the other risks that are associated. And like I said, if we proceed forward and everybody says, I don't want to deal with 40 or 50, I want to go back to 8, then you present it to this town board. The town board will take the information and we'll put the investment in there. This town board has always been staying ahead of the curve. In the last few years, they've always done what was needed to do, and I don't think they would, stop doing that now.
David, I have a question and I have a concern. One of the things you said earlier was that you're lowering the chlorine levels. Now, I know as a public health person that if you lower the chlorine levels, the chance for bacteria that can be extremely harmful and has really been substantiated in data, especially against the immune suppressed, and most of the time the elderly or those with devastating illnesses, that will go up. So as we continue to test and we continue to study, if we see that those bacteria, crypto, et cetera, are going up, how are we going to resolve that problem? Because right now, halocylic acid is a byproduct of the chlorine you use to prevent the bacteria that can be so harmful and has legitimately been documented. It is extremely harmful. I'm in a quandary here. What can
we're not at a level where we have a factor of safety in there, and like I said, we monitor it daily.
Okay.
But we're not at that level where we would risk that, because the risk of not having chlorine is, thousands of times greater than the halocytic problem we have right now.
Okay.
And also, correct. Not having bad bacteria in the system. Yeah. No, it's not. But it could. I mean, the reason why, and just to go back to the disinfectant method, there are other disinfectants you can use, but there are other byproducts that are more harmful than halocytic acids. So people say, why don't you try doing, other types? Those are, a lot worse than the halocytic acids. The other good reason for chlorine is that it's a durable disinfectant. Once it's in the system, it stays in the system for a long period of time. Given the fact that our distribution system is very wide, it goes from Palmer Lane all the way down to Alsoma Road near Regeneron, and it also goes north and south. We've got an extensive distribution system. We need to make sure that the safety is there for an acute problem.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Gary German, 12 Halsey Place. I just made some notes. Just want to say, first off, I don't know you personally, or I know some members of the board just from when I moved here, but it's unacceptable to still not know what is going on. If I heard David correctly mention several times that we still don't know what is the cause of this. I believe that, as you've said, this was known back as early as October, but the levels were still at that border for quite a while. Now, I know there's a public health person up there. If your blood, just give this analogy, maybe it's a poor analogy, blood pressure is high at certain levels. You don't wait until you're at 140 over 110, start taking blood pressure medication. You're going to start going to see your provider a lot sooner. And I would hope, I might be wrong at the certain levels, but you would want to start treating and start reacting to something at high levels like this beforehand, not wait until it reaches the maximum threshold level for a while, especially if it's true that surrounding towns have a fraction of the levels of toxicity or whatever these halocytic issues are. I'm sorry, you're about to say something.
No, I was about to say, I think That is what we all want. We want a quick fix. We want to figure out what's the problem and let's do it and get it done with, just as the blood pressure issue. But if you really think about when you go to your provider and you go in with that first high blood pressure, it's going to take them a while to investigate why. You're going to be spoken to about dietary and medications that you might be taking or exercise plans.
It's going to
So
be
again,
easy to know why.
But David is trying, what David Smith is trying to tell you is that there's a systemic approach to figuring out why this happened and what the steps are to resolve it. We all agree there is an issue, okay? We can look and research and do everything we want for our own opinions, but until the steps are taken, just as a physician would take the steps to treat your high blood pressure, we're trying with our engineer to take the steps to treat the issue. So we have to give that process time.
But what I'm trying to say is the physician can't treat the patient unless the patient comes in to the physician's office. So right now, everyone was aware that there was a problem
I'm not
here.
following you, but that's okay. We can have that discussion later. I don't.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is still unacceptable to have waited this long. I don't know who to look at to actually do something. This should be treated as an emergency. My question is there any help that the town could ask from a state level or federal level for emergency funds for the infiltration unit? I believe you mentioned that cost $10 million. Would this warrant an emergency of high levels? I just wanted to go ahead, and I have a study here that I came across, and if you give me a moment, and this affects any woman here in the town that is of childbearing age. That there is a study that, if you give me one moment, women who drank water containing disinfection byproducts during pregnancy show an association between exposure to elevated levels of and small increased risk for low birth weights, miscarriages, and birth defects. Pregnancy is only 9 months. So hearing that only required to have testing 4 times a year, that's pretty scary.
I would ask you, sir, how much water would an individual consume over what amount of time and at what rate to make those?
I could try to get that study to you that might have some more of those details.
There's
But I'm
so
assuming they're normal levels that a pregnant woman would drink, that actually they have risks of low birth, that's actually affecting their children.
You talking about acetic acid?
Correct.
Okay, well,
You're talking about other elements. You're talking about being used in the water for.
It was in this study. I could forward it.
I think we have to.
Conversation I had with New York City Water Supply today. They're talking about major consumptions of water, not a glass of water a day. And these tests are done through a lot of consumption of water. That's how the test is done. And we're not trying to lighten this. I mean, we all drink this water. I do also. So we're not making light of this at all. But it's not an instant fix. We are aware of it, and we're going to work on trying to find a solution for it.
Okay, well, I think just going forward, the fact that it took this long, even though there were kind of warning, there were red flags, that it took this long to actually do something, that's concerning. I think someone mentioned, right? I don't have the facts. Someone in the crowd mentioned that it was in 58, right, for quite a while.
Well, the report from 2014 in Belmont, I think said around 50 was meant if I show the exact numbers. But it sounds like it's been up, but not exceeding that VA mark.
And I also want to just echo, testing needs to be done in schools immediately. I understand the concern with other adults and senior centers. Absolutely agree. I have a 5-year-old goes to school, exactly the same thing. I just bought Poland Spring bottles today. I don't know what to do. They're brushing their teeth, even teaching my 2-year-old, brush your teeth. She doesn't spit the water out when she brings the water. She's swallowing that water. And I think there needs to be a lot more education on the website, provided a whole education section of what could be done instead of everyone having to go Google and go to this website, that website, maybe the links all on one section, easy to find, easy to access. And that would, I think, help even mitigate a lot of our concerns as well, of kind of just what should we be doing? What should we be worrying about? keep the communication open as well. Do you know when the next time the testing is going to be done?
Once we have more accurate information to share, we will definitely do that. It's got to be accurate information. We're still gathering information. We're still getting advice from the experts on the outside. Once we have all this information together, we will share that with the public.
And how long does it take to gather that information?
As soon as they respond to us.
How long do you think it's going to take? Is it going to take a week, a month, 6 months, a year? Can it take as long as a year? But it could take as long as a year. Okay, can it take as long as 6 months?
That's very hard to say.
I don't know what you're.
Well, I'm just trying to find, is it,
We'll get the information as soon as we have it. We're not going to hide any information from you.
I'm not saying that the board's going to hide any information from
We
us.
can't give you a definite date when this information will be available.
I'm just,
We're relying on experts to get back to us,
Uh-huh.
give us the information. It's not instant. It's not a simple solution here. We want to make sure that the information we get is accurate. I'm not going to share with you anything that I do not believe to be accurate information.
Okay, I'm just trying to find out exactly how long it takes to get this. Okay.
Let me just chime in for a second. You know, not knowing everyone in here, I assume most of us are consuming this water. So we're in this together. I know Mr. Smith lives in town and his family consumes water too, and as does mine and many of the board members up here. So we're in this together. And if it means that if testing in the schools can be helpful, I'm all for it. I'm not concerned with the cost. I'm not sure if testing water at specific sites is going to answer questions for us, but if it does, I'm all for it. I'm all for funding whatever we need to do to expedite. If we can expedite lab results, I'm all for it. And we're going to convey that to David. He's already for it. You know, when it comes to that stuff, I know his position on this. It's absolutely acceptable for everyone to be worried, concerned, feeling a little bit of chaos at the moment and doom and gloom because this is water. It's, you know, blood of life, right? So it's important. It's something we utilize every day. I am very concerned, personally. But we do have to approach this methodically. We also have to approach it with the understanding that the county also dictates the levels and some of the process for us. So, you know, what I would ask is that you allow us an opportunity to test and try to get results as fast as we can. And if we could get them faster, I'm going to encourage, and I don't think I'm going to have to push the board too hard on that, to pay if we have to pay extra. Whatever we could do to expedite this, we will do it. It's a serious issue. I'm all for it. I would just say the other piece to that is that, you know, we just understand that, you know, I think a few people have mentioned it. If we need more information on a website, we'll do it.
When did, if you could answer this, when did the information gathering start?
That's not, I would love to answer that. I don't have that information. David is.
David, do you know when the information gathering started?
We started when we got the second set of round of notices. Like I said, the first we've had, in the past, we've had a high notice. I mean, a notice go out. When the second notice came up, we knew we had to take significant action. Just to let you know that the study you reported, I'd like to see that because when I've done research, we find some studies that say that issue was an issue, and then we find some studies that discount that. So that just as you see, there's studies that say it does this harm. There's other issues saying that they've researched it and it hasn't done that. So, and then just to give you an idea, the 60 micrograms per liter is the level set by EPA, set by New York State, that states that anything under this on a 4-year average is safe to drink in their eyes. So if you say it's at 58 and you say we shouldn't even be at 58, that's something an EPA is setting.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is once it hit a certain threshold, that it should have triggered, wait a minute, we should, even in October, so you just said the information gathering started the second time. Why did the information gathering start the first time in October when you already breached that recommended level? Were you waiting? No, I'm not trying to attack you in any way. I'm just
No, and the question was why in October.
Miraculously lower on its own?
No, we were actually trying to solve the problem at that point with the tools that we had at the time, which is lowering the chlorine, paying attention to chlorine, flushing the system out. So we were attacking the problem per se, just to get those levels down. When the levels came back still high after we've done what efforts we've done, That's when we said we have to take a look at this and we have to start focusing more on tools that we don't have. So that's why. And like I said, if you have in the notice that went out, it says if you can't get the right answers from us, contact Westchester County Health Department. That's what they do. That's what they do for a living. Or contact New York State Health Department, or contact EPA. Those are other avenues you can go to. As far as immediate immediate benefits, we reviewed, and there's studies that say that if you use a certain GAC filter in a pitcher and you use that in your refrigerator, it can reduce it. On average, they said 66%. Okay. There are whole house filters that you can install in your house that specifically state and are on record that will remove HAAs down to almost zero level.
Where can I find this information?
You can Google it. I cut. We could put those manufacturers that claim that and say these are a list of manufacturers that claim what they claim. But if you're concerned, if anybody in the audience is concerned, besides waiting for us to do something, go out and purchase a whole house filter that removes all the halocytic acids, and then you never have a problem. If that's your immediate concern.
That's a really pricey, huge expense, exactly, especially if then you guys do go ahead and make changes to the filtration system and then our water bill goes up. So now I just paid for
Correct.
$3,000 to put this in my home, and now my water bill is going to go up anyway.
Just to let you know that, the only reason I want to say is that if you were the example you're using about high blood pressure, we're at a spot that if you go in a doctor and say I have high blood pressure, the doctor says, we're at instance, so we just can't give you a pill and it gets resolved. We have to actually, go to bonding, design, get approved by a health department, actually find the site, start construction, put it into process. That's going to take some time. It's like if you go to a doctor and ask for, a Lipitor to reduce your blood pressure, they're going to say, well, we have to design the drug first. That's almost like we're facing right now. So, whereas the doctor would say, just, cut out having, Philly cheesesteaks every day. Now, that's what we're saying. Go out and get a whole house filter and you won't have a problem. At least that buys us time to look at the problem. And if if our experts come back and say, make these minor changes in the system, we'll do it.
So will the testing be done more frequently? Because how do you know your methods are effective if you're only doing it once every 3 months?
Oh, we could do that. When we do the changes, we could do it, but we can increase our frequency. That's not, and like I said, the board just said that that's not off the table, not to do more frequent testing.
If we find that the last resort is a filtration system, it's not going to be something that will happen overnight. As fast as we may want to implement that plan, it could take a year or maybe longer to be able to, like David said, find a site, construction, financing, everything else. We're talking tremendous amount of money, but if that's going to solve our problem, the town board is willing to do that.
So that money is going to come then from taxpayers.
Of course.
So my point is to spend $2,000-3,000 on a filtration system, and then a year or two later,
your point is definitely well received. I understand that.
Yeah, and the question was if it takes 2 or 3 years to do a treatment plant, filtration plant, why spend the money on a whole house filter? Now, like I said, this goes back to personal choice. If you find having this water in your home is not acceptable for 2 quarters, let alone 3 years, I would recommend going to get the system that allows us time to do the significant fix.
Testing that I brought up earlier, that's $240, because I would like to try different things in my home to see what actually work. Now, what we need to test for is 25 out of the Westchester County laboratories. They came back and said that's $25 for one sample. Then they came back and said the halocytic is $240. It's a big difference. I mean, I might start there. It's a shame that I have to go through this, in a town where
There's no way to get emergency funding from, like I said, the federal level or anything, no?
Maybe the county would be the first step.
I think that one of the comments today on Facebook said that we are the Flint, Michigan. Now, that was a public health emergency. And if you read about Flint, Michigan, you will see the lead levels. Westchester County school districts went through an amazing amount of testing in the last few years in regard to lead, especially in the Rochelle area. They also tested water fountains in many of their schools. Again, what we have to take a look at is the frequency of consumption of the water, the amount of consume, the health status of the person consuming them. There are a lot of variables, okay? So what we're trying to ask you to understand is that the system is put into place. We're going to work the system. As Mr. DiPaolo, Mr. Fulgenzi said, we're very, very supportive. We will spend what we need to spend. But first, we need to let David Smith as the engineer and the consultants and the experts come back to us. It's like dissecting any kind of public health problem or treating someone with high blood pressure. It's a multi-step process. Again, individuals can go ahead and put in the whole house system, or as you said before, the GAC filters onto a pitcher or whatever, or you can opt to do bottled water. But we have to look at the entire town and all of the residents. I appreciate everyone being here, reaching out and asking questions before and after this meeting. However, I have to go ahead and rely on the expert here, David Smith, to work the system and then come back to us. There's nothing more we can tell you this evening to make it any easier. It's going to be a matter of time. We'll expedite it as soon as possible.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, Board, and Mr. Smith. Mark Saraceno. I live on Wartburg Place in Valhalla. I just have some questions for information gathering. I too am a little bit disturbed by the fact that this came up in October, and now we're being told that, we have to be patient and wait and stuff. And I understand that it didn't, you waited for it to trip again. But I'm just curious, what was your protocol, or is there a procedure in place that you followed in October when you reached the 60 level?
I'll tell you what's required, and what's required is we send out a notice and we apply certain remedies to the system, and it's accepted by the County Board of Health as those remedies are concerned. We did, like I said, when the first notices came out, we did look at the low-hanging fruit, which is reduce our chlorine levels, which would affect the amount of byproducts secreted. We also started flushing the system to get the age of the water out. And so our first notice, and like I said, we've had notices before where they've come out, we've issued them, and then our levels kept coming back down.
How soon after those test results came in and you lowered the chlorine, did you test again?
It was the next round of testing, which was probably, we test every 3 months. And you also have to understand that when you do these processes, it takes some time for the water to work through the system, for the system to change to be effective.
How much time typically?
We didn't do any extra testing. We weren't required to do extra testing. We're required to try and lower the levels, and we did what we thought was going to assist, and it didn't assist until the next round. Like I said, we have had instances where we've had high HAAs, not only in Kensico but in Pecanico, and they've been high for 1 quarter, and then they've come back down.
And just out of curiosity for the chlorine levels, because I know there's concern about the levels and the safety of the bacteria, when that test came out in October, what did you lower them from, and what did they end up at the next test?
I don't have a specific number. It's changes throughout the district, but I don't want to give you the wrong numbers right now, but I could provide that information for you.
And are you continuing to lower them now? No. So they're lower than they were in October?
No, when they were lowered down to the lowest level, we felt comfortable with a factor of safety in the system. They've been maintained at that level since then.
Okay, maintained at the lower level. Correct. Okay, and that's still within Westchester County or EPA guidelines, I assume.
And factor safety, so how much higher than.
Okay. Okay. And then as for now, I guess we don't have too many answers. I think a lot more of the concern for me, from my end, is not just the drinking water, but the bathing and the showering and the steam and the breathing in. And, your body absorbs a lot more of that, I believe, through the pores in a 20-minute shower than it would in an 8.
Yeah, there's no study saying there's any issue with the showering and the absorption.
So, well, if it's in the water, it's absorbing into your skin, so it must be getting into your body.
Just to note that if you're concerned about drinking and bathing in it, don't Google pool water.
Thank you.
You don't want to know what's in pool water.
I read Mark. I
Yeah.
read a lot of stuff too. I guess that's
It's scary,
crazy
man.
parents do late at night.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I did read a lot about that, and a lot of that stuff came up on very unreliable websites. Things, I try to stick to the journals, to the studies, the genuine, authentic studies that are done. I didn't find any of that I was looking for. I didn't find any of the absorption through pores or showering or pool water concerns on anything that I saw that was authentic, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We could look into that
Right.
further.
Yeah. I mean, I asked our pediatrician, and she said anything that could be in the water would get in. Like when you're in Mexico, they say, don't get the water in your eyes. It's one thing to drink it, same type of idea. But she's not an expert on water either. So I just hope that I appreciate your level of concern and everybody, taking this seriously. I do hope that you somewhat look at this as some basic state of emergency, because we're now kind of 5 months past the ball almost since October, since it first happened. And I just hope going forward that there's more of a proactive approach, maybe more testing. I know you said you have your EPA guidelines, and I think we're going above those for some federal reason, but I hope you go above them for this reason in particular, and continue to test regularly and maybe a little bit more frequently to see if it is the groundwater, which right now with the ground thawing out, we're in that cycle. And I think everybody's concerned. There's we all know too many people that have had cancer, whether it's in our neighborhoods or in our towns. And I have nothing to compare it against because I don't research other towns, but I just know that there's always been a very high amount of people I've known in this town, parents of kids I grew up with, now sadly children of friends of mine that are in elementary school. And I'm not saying there's any correlation to this directly, but it's just one of those you never know type of things. Better err on the side of caution. So please try to treat this as an emergency and
Without a doubt,
do what you
it really
can.
is in our minds. I mean, we learned about it pretty much when it came out, and it's been question after question, and we're trying to learn and we're trying to support David in any way. I will tell you that, happy or not with answers tonight, you have one of the finest people in the county with this. He is one of the hardest working people I know, and if there's a way to find answers and solutions, he's going to find them. And I will tell you that if there is any money that we can allocate to increase testing or anything like that, I know I'm speaking for myself right now, but I feel confident the board would support that.
Thanks.
It's our emergency right now. It may not be the biggest emergency out there, and it may, if you ask scientists, may be within, allowable limits and close to thresholds and all that, but to the town of Mount Pleasant right now in these water districts, it's our emergency.
Thank you.
I think the town board would agree that moving forward, we would authorize David to do additional testing, not only in the schools, but all public buildings that the
Right.
town owns.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And just to be sure, I know that you're referred to as the interim water supervisor. So I guess I'm sure this is what you signed on for when you when you were appointed to this. But how long have you been? I'm just curious, and how long do you plan to stay?
After tonight? You mean after tonight? Yeah.
Lock the door, yeah, right.
No,
Fair.
just to let you know that I the interim, we're working on removing the interim, but it was to get the operator's license, and I did receive my operator's license successfully to operate the systems. So interim is just because I have 2 titles right now. I don't plan on going anywhere. If people know me, I'm a problem solver, so this problem will get solved one way or the other. It's just a matter of how we move forward to get to that point. And thank you, Mr. DiPaolo, for those words.
Well, it's honestly true. I mean, from my perspective, and I've seen a lot of people handle a lot of situations in different aspects of the town and the county and even at the state level. And, I know it's hard to hear when you hear emergency like this or a crisis like this, but trust me, if there's someone who's going to solve this and work hard 24/7, it's the man standing up here today. So just try to have a little patience as we vet this and gather what we need to gather to do it correctly and have correct information.
Can I speak a comment, or a question actually? Because let's say the testing comes back and it goes down again. What's to say we're not going to be here in a year?
But we may and that's part of the consultants, I think, is that we may end up going through with a filtration plan.
Yeah.
Think
We
the
don't know.
long-term solution.
It's always right there, and it could easily then, if it is the rain, what's to say we're not gonna have a big rain cycle coming in? And then we're gonna be right back here trying to figure this out and upset and
That's why,
being proactive.
that's why we're reaching out to get the proper advice, how to move forward. It's not something that if it drops tomorrow that we're gonna say, oh, forget about it. This is gonna be an ongoing study.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that.
I think the consultants will help with that.
Yeah, and just to let people in the audience know, the question was, well, let's say it goes back to 58 again for a while. I believe that the feeling is now that it's not acceptable anymore. And I think that, we're going to proceed. My understanding under this, even if we get to that point, I want to carry this through so that the decision, maybe we just go forward. Hopefully that's the case. But if not, we have something that's on the shelf, approved, ready to go, and then we're not where we are right now. So in 97, we had something and it's, somewhere in the back, with dust on and everything else. I would want to make sure that if we were working towards funding, let's say, or whatever, that we have something where we've already have approval and it's just a matter of we just got to get the contractor on board and get the shovels in the ground and get this process started. But I think we're at a point now where, like I said, we don't know what the fix is. We don't know what the numbers are. But if the fix comes in and the numbers aren't that significant, this board, knowing them, will not think twice about proceeding and getting it solved, even proceeding with a high price tag. So, like I said, I'm a problem solver. Trust me, I don't want to be back here. I don't want to be, looking at you and having your concerns and having your family face these issues. So if I could find a way to get this done and get it paid for, I'm more than happy to do it and work hard to get to that point.
I just wanted, before I go, to say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
So did you sign in before?
Yes.
You did? Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Tom McTighe, 116 Rolling Hills Road. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I want to thank the supervisor of the board and David. I do trust that I do believe that we have to trust this process. But as a parent, and I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of all the parents here in Mount Pleasant of students that are attending our schools, has the board been communicating with the Dr. Coates, the superintendent of schools of Mount Pleasant, and the school board? I'm an employee. I work at the city school district of New Rochelle, and I do know that there was extensive testing done at every water fountain in every single building. And I'm not saying that perhaps this is what is required here in our school district, but I just want to know, or I'm sure a lot of us would like to know, to what extent you've been in communication with Dr. Coates and the school board, and if that's something that you do.
Everyone within the water district receives the same notifications. And just realize this is a water source issue, so it affects every consumer in those water districts, or I should say it potentially affects every water consumer in that water district. So it's not something that, we're not going to, spot treat is not going to solve the issue on a whole. It's a water source. It's where the water is coming from. And, unlike the lead issues in schools, is coming from a lot of their pipes, right? And our own schools have that issue, unfortunately, and have addressed it too. So it's a little bit different than just, spot treating certain areas.
But if we do test the water in the school buildings, and perhaps if their levels are unusually high, as it's been quoted, perhaps that could be one of several priorities in terms of filtering the water.
Just to respond to the New Rochelle issue, that was directly a lead issue.
Correct.
Okay, just to
to
clarify that. Another clarification is there are multiple school districts within the town of Mount Pleasant, and although you addressed the Mount Pleasant School District, we would have to expand our testing if that is what is decided, to not only Mount Pleasant School District, by Valhalla School Districts, and some of the other school districts that do receive their water from Kensico and or Pecanico. So again, that's a decision that will be made here. I just wanted to clarify.
Correct,
And to really
understood.
let the public know that we're not talking about a lead issue in water. We're talking about a byproduct of chlorination, haloacetic acid.
Yes, I was just drawing
Okay.
the comparison in the sense of that they had to test their waters, but it
Yes,
was a
okay.
different for something different, of course.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned earlier, if testing in schools or any particular buildings is helpful to understanding the issue, I'm all for it.
I can't imagine it not being helpful.
I don't know. I mean, if it's a water source issue, I'm not sure if, it affects.
But
any
some
other-
homes may have higher levels than other homes. We've had this conversation how some sections of the town, whether it be in Valhalla, Kensico, Pleasantville, or in Thornwood or Hawthorne, there may be different levels. So if we looked at all of the buildings, I think it would be comforting to parents who are residents here in the town.
It is in two particular water districts. The others do not show this. That's why I asked that a map of the water districts be posted. Kensico and Pecanico are the two.
Okay.
And, the others don't show it. So I understand your concern, but I see that it's not an overarching issue in the entire town right now. I hope it doesn't ever come to me.
Actually, I think the schools are located within. Yeah.
Some
Yeah,
are.
some
That's what
are,
I'm saying.
yes.
Some are, but for example, Pleasantville High Schools and middle school and elementary school are not. Yeah,
We
and
definitely need the map because
yeah,
the
that's
words,
why we need
the
the
word
map.
some are is not very comforting to,
right, exactly.
I think I'd
So
like to know if my son and daughter's schools are one of those some.
right, and that's why a map would be very useful.
I guess what we're getting at by being a concerned parent is that at home, I could supervise where my child is drinking his water from, or children are drinking their water from. And I send them to school with water. But then, and as the weather gets warmer out, he's gonna deplete what I send, and I can't send in like a huge chug, he's gonna go to the water. So yes, I think it is important to know what levels are in the schools as well. And then we can make a decision about how we want to go forward in terms of the short-term issue right now. So if the testing comes back in a week that it is very high, maybe I'll send him with 3 water bottles, just while the town is figuring out how to proceed. So I think
I think we're there. I think, as I said, I think we're there. If that is something that David feels is going to be helpful, we're going to do it. We're going to support it.
Yeah, I mean, I would contact the school and at least voice your opinion to the school about the testing of their water, and then we'll contact the school and work with them.
Who would pay for that? I'm just wondering, they might come back and make.
That would be the school. I would think that the school's going to pay for that. No, the school would pick that up.
Great question. You said you would contact the schools. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll
Okay,
contact the school.
Contacting or-
No, well, I would say that the parents should contact because are the parents going to be happy one fountain? Are the parents going to want all the fountains? Are the parents going to want all the schools? I mean, that's something that the parents and quite frankly, the school districts and the towns are naturally separated. We can't go in and we can't issue any permits. We don't do anything with the schools. So when the lead testing thing, the initiative came up, we had nothing to do with school districts. So the question I'm saying is that they have received this notice. They are aware of this problem. Yes, we send it to all of our customers, all in Kensico, all 4,900 received the notices. So my recommendation will be to contact them and start that process with them.
The lead testing is based on the pipes at the
Correct,
end user,
correct.
Whereas this is based at the filtration source.
Correct. So that's the thing is but the other thing is if it's found high in the schools, it's up to the school to go in and put those type of remedies or mitigation measures into place.
Real quick, I was told once that the DEP, or maybe it's the water district, tests the town water daily. I'll bet Wesley that is that accurate? I've heard that from the previous superintendent, that water's tested. I don't know if it was by the DEP.
I'm not sure specifically if that school says we do bacteria sampling in the district. We have daily, but not at the specific school daily. It's one part of the distribution system. Yeah, we do testing, our daily testing in the system, but for chlorine, turbidity, those type of samples are not healthy gases.
Are you also going to work closely with all of the school districts and buildings?
Yeah, like I said, yeah, no, it's not so much the customer scenario type. It's more like if it's through state legislation, schools are totally separated from the municipality. That doesn't mean that we can't assist, and we do assist. But like I said, if this is the school issue, the parents should go and say, we want X, Y, Z. If they want to come to us and say, what kind of test should we do? We're more than willing to help them with that. We're more than willing to, put together a plan for them. However, as a town employee, we've always been told stay away from the schools because we don't have any input into how they do their operations.
I have a quick question. Do we know if when we cook with this water, does raising the temperature, like boiling water, change the chemical stuff?
The only thing I found on studies done is that if you boil the water, it decreases one acidic acid, but it raises another acidic acid. So as one type, it'll reduce it by 35%, but another one will increase that acid by another 26%, almost an even keel. So you're getting rid of one, but you're increasing the other. And I believe the two in question are the ones that our numbers are high on. So you wouldn't, in this case, you wouldn't affect the levels by boiling it.
And on that same question, because I love the accounting, I have science. Does filtering the water and then you go to boil water for potatoes, if you filtered it, are you reversing that by boiling it? Is it a
No,
mix of questions that?
No, the filter, yeah, it's not easy science to look at it. If it's filtered before it reacts with the chlorine, you're moving the organics that assist to create these byproducts. I'm not sure what the chemical reaction is, if it repulls those acidic acids and stores them in the filter and doesn't allow them to proceed forward. But I believe it's more of a capture device where it captures the acidic acids in the filter and stores them. I don't believe it chemically changes them, and then you have to worry about them after. Once they're filtered through, they're no longer present, they're no longer subject to any of those other heating or any other further chlorine impacts. The maximum, I believe, is I believe it's 5 is the maximum you're allowed. Swimming pools are about 3.5 to 4, so that gives you an idea of what the maximum is.
So the max for drinking water is 5?
Yeah, 5, yeah.
Just a clarification, I'm understanding that we have a very large and expensive ultraviolet light water purification system. Why is it still necessary to use chlorine?
There's 2 different levels of chlorine in bacteria or virus removal. The UV does one type of virus removal and the chlorine does the other type. The other thing too is that the UV kills viruses coming in, but viruses can always start later on in the process. That's why we put chlorine in the system. That's why chlorine goes into the system, because there's always a chance for bacteria in the system to start recreating again. And chlorine essentially removes their capacity to do that.
Filtration systems that the other towns have, they don't use chlorine?
No, they also use chlorine. Chlorine is a disinfectant. What the filtration does, it removes the natural organic material that is in the system. So that material that comes in is the material that reacts with the chlorine. So if you pull all that stuff out, the chlorine goes in the system and it doesn't react with anything. So those little levels you see in there is probably the biofilms in the pipes that still react to them. However, it's getting the material out. We don't have the ability to remove the material because it does require a system to pull them out.
Does it reduce the amount of chlorine needed for the system?
No, the chlorine stays the same. 97 was $10 million. So we all know what a house costs in 97 and what a house costs now. So you can probably, double that and maybe, 17 to $20 million probably.
When you refer to high organic matter and we're talking about, are we talking about something that you would walk through the system and look for? Or
No, it's at such a level you could look at a clear vial and you'd be like, that's crystal clear water, and it could have a certain level of material still in it. It's on like a microscopic level. That's what we're looking at. So and that's why our levels have been usually pretty good coming in from the aqueduct, and for some reason something's happening to those levels to react with the chlorine. So we believe it. Like I said, in the case of Kensico, we believe it's blending of other waters that has changed, and they've stopped that. But we do also understand that they may do that in the future. So that's one thing we're going to consider when we move forward with the project of the filtration plant is what and that's quite frankly, that's another reason why we go through this is to actually find out what the cause is, because once we know what the cause is, we know if it's going to happen in the future again, and we can then do an analysis saying, do we want to deal with this in the future again? So that's also could assist in getting the plant funded and implemented.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll be quick.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Heather Kaplan, 191 Madison Avenue in Valhalla. And I'm not going to be too long. I just want to say thank you to all the people that came out to speak about this tonight. I know we've been talking about it on Facebook for a while. And yes, I'm a parent, and yes, I'm scared. I'm also hold a master's degree in science. I take the science of this extremely seriously, especially the studies that I've been reading. I'm happy to provide the board with the peer-reviewed articles that I've read. And it is sound research. Also hoping to become pregnant in the next year. I'm extremely scared about the reports I read about the effects on reproductive health, endocrinology studies, follicle studies. It's disturbing, and I'll send you. It's sound science. I will happily send it to you. I think what I've heard from everyone here tonight, and I think what we want the board to really walk away with is we don't want to be at this 60 level mark. That's an EPA standard that we don't really understand, and I'm sure it was set extremely high to begin with. So we don't want to be at the 60 mark. We want to be well below it. We don't want to feel like we're kind of safe. We want to feel like we're extremely well cared for. We are drinking the safest water possible, not just barely squeaking by. And we want to leave here tonight knowing that that's going to be heard, that we're not just going to squeak by anymore. We want to have great water levels. We want to do the best we possibly can for our children. And I got a notice in the mail, and that's why I'm here. And one of the things it said on the notice was you have to be particularly careful for immunosuppressed people. I live with one of those people, and she's really scared right now. She's my mother-in-law. You're telling me that to ensure safe water, I have to go out and spend about $2,000 to $3,000 on a whole house filtration system, which is a huge amount of money. And I'm so lucky that I can actually afford that. Barely, but I can. I can't tell you how many people there are in this town that want the same thing that cannot afford it. So is there anything we can do as a town to provide for our immunosuppressed people? Is there anything we can do? Can we provide bottled water until this is well below the limit? I'm worried for her, and I'm worried for those people and the effect that this will have on their health. We do not have enough information right now in studies to tell us exactly how this is affecting our health. That doesn't mean that it's not. It just means no one's done a large-scale study. That doesn't mean it doesn't affect us. That's really an important difference to make. So I just want the town to think about that. We have a lot of people in our town, a lot of elderly, who could really use our support on this issue. We don't know how it's affecting them. So something to really think about. Oh, thank you. But I do appreciate that you're all concerned like we are. No one's saying that you're not. We just want you to hear us.
And I do hear
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
I do think that on the notice, it also did say if you had questions, please. And someone on Facebook did go ahead and contact the physician of the person in question. Okay, run it by your physician, please, to protect who you're speaking of.
I did reach out to the Department of Health as well, to Mr. Ian, Chein, over at the Department of Health. He did say very similar things to what we spoke about, but, you know, we are making an effort to reach out, and if several people are trying to investigate, you know, different ways to filter water, so it just, we needed our voices to be heard.
Oh, no, and we know that.
Absolutely.
We know that.
And that, to make sure that something does get done. I did just look quickly on the website for Pelham and Ardsley, which are southern, which you said someone had said it's always higher for southern counties to get their water. In 2017, Ardsley was at 38, which is a lot lower than what we're normally at. And in 2015, Pelham was at, I think it was 23 or 25. Just so you know that, you know, it sounds like an ongoing issue with this town and different from other counties, other towns in Westchester
Would you
County.
still say that those are acceptable, 24?
They're a lot better than 50.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, I think we're either looking at
We're not,
nothing
we're not
or,
educated enough
yeah.
to make that decision.
So what I'm saying that even if we came in and said these are 20, 30, or you're saying it's just still unacceptable, so don't say
It
that
has to
those
be
are,
consistent.
you want to go with 0 or less.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that we're always, this town seems to be, the water level seems to be right at that mark.
We want to
like in
get the
the 50s.
recommended level, not at upper spec, upper rate.
Like,
No, the recommended level is 60 though.
that's the highest
That's a
level.
higher.
That's the that's the.
That's when you
there's
got
no
alerts, you
recommended
have to
level.
break it down.
There's no
That's when the
recommended
alerts have to
level.
go out, is at 60.
60 is the, anything under 60 is recommended.
Yeah.
So that's what
So-
I'm saying, if you're at 58, yeah, 58, you're saying you're okay, you're in the safe zone. So that's what I'm saying, is that they're saying, EPA is saying, this is a level that we believe above that, this suggests there's potential for, issues, whether it's, you know, a hose issue,
Again,
above that.
Again, we're in Westchester County, we're surrounded by several other towns. Again, we should use them as a comparison. Why are they in the 20s or even 30s, 5s, 10s? Why are we in the 50s? I think
Well, that's what they're trying to find out.
Two different discussions.
According
Yeah.
to my discussion with New York City Water Supply today, the issue is not just with the town of Mount Pleasant. The issue goes south to New York City. I'm not saying that the levels could vary, different areas, but it's an issue from here to the end of the water supply system in New York City, from Kensico Reservoir.
Mr. Fulgenzi, this was the issue of the rising temperatures of the water and the high rains. Is that correct? So there was a lot of rain.
There's so many variables.
No,
It's a
that's
possibility.
It's a possibility.
Right? So if there's more rain, rising temperatures, which seems to be a global trend at this point, then if that is the trend, what would be the suggestion for a move towards filtration?
So that
I mean,
would be
that's
the
all
only-
part of what we're trying to say is going to be the next step, right? So if I can recap, maybe to give us all a sense of what next steps are, would that be helpful?
Yes. we need
So
closure.
what I've wrote notes down, and I could be wrong, so please correct me. We're gonna do some more water testing, more frequent, whatever cost that is to us. We have hired Woodward and Curran to do some consultant work with us, and they'll provide both short-term and long-term solutions. My assumption is short-term is what could possibly remedy the situation as it currently exists with our infrastructure. The long-term possibly could be a new treatment facility. We will post info on the website. We'll post household remedies on the website. David, you mentioned contacting schools to offer collaboration, but please fully understand that the schools have every right to handle this in whichever way they want. That's the design of municipalities versus school districts. But we'll certainly reach out to offer our assistance and collaboration. What am I missing? Maps on the website, okay.
Maps so that people realize that this issue doesn't affect every water district in the town of Mount Pleasant, but is related to the Kensico and the Pecanico water districts.
And I think then as soon as we get any of the information that we just mentioned, we have to make it available, obviously, and we'll do that. The public notice is through the email alert system is really important. So if you don't get emails from us, sign up for them. They're so easy to subscribe to right on the website. You can pick and choose and customize what you get. It's the easiest way for us to communicate. Obviously, we do mailings when required to, but those can be very expensive. We also have some social media outlets, like those, whatever you have to do to those to get that information. But make sure you're getting information through the email system. That seems to be the most effective form of communication. But we will post any of this information that we get.
I have a question. Do you have maybe a link on your website where residents could ask questions as they come up to maybe that would get filtered to the appropriate person to answer them, if really that person or if it's someone else? Like,
Yeah, each department has a contact number.
okay.
You can go to engineering or water and find my name.
I'm sure as we're all processing this, it's like a lot to think about, and other questions will pop
Sure.
up and we need answers.
Okay, questions are good because, we can shift our efforts elsewhere if we need to also.
Well, as we talked about before, there's a lot of misinformation. We want to make sure that the information that we do share is accurate information that you can rely on. If we come up with some kind of a filter that we could recommend, we would do that. But there's a lot out there in the market. We don't know which one actually handles this type of test.
You know one.
One, yeah.
And please look at the studies that we provided on the website, and we'll be putting some others up there. So if you have any studies that you feel are significant, please forward it us also.
I don't know if you want to close also the Westchester County Laboratories and research.
Sure.
That individuals can go to have their own water tested. Obviously, it would be privately, but it's a good resource for people.
And I guess the county never provides any relief on that fee if it's like some sort of, not that it's an emergency, but if it's some sort of higher alert.
Only on lead testing.
Just lead, yeah.
You
Lead's
can-
free, right?
Yep, that's right.
I did ask when I called if this was provided by the county.
So some of these wouldn't want them to say, we'll waive that because this is a concern that's affecting your community.
I mean, it always helps to go through your county legislator to see if they can do that.
Good.
Or reach out to the executive.
Thanks.
I'll do that. I'll reach out to our county legislator and see if there is a way for them to proceed, if they can get some relief in that sense.
Thank you.
Also a neighbor.
David, you're looking at solving this problem.
I have a neighbor.
Reducing the chemical emissions. We're building a $20 million system. Back in '90s, when Pleasantville, Chappaqua, Authority, they invited Mount Pleasant to hook into their system, which obviously is a much better system than where you. Do you think it's worthwhile to look in the possibilities of doing that? Obviously, it would take less than 10 years and it would allow us not to have the golden bullet so that when this happens again, we'll all be here arguing, should it be 48 or 50 or 60? Has anybody ever thought about doing that?
No, it's an option. The only, I'm not sure if when they invited us, they built a plan based on their capacity that they expected.
No, I don't think so.
So I don't know.
If memory is right, what happened was they went under the assumption that we were going there until we found out the cost increase of the order. And if you're old enough, you remember that's why everybody kept saying, that's why it costs $5 to flush a toilet.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost that much to call somebody up in Pleasantville and say, are you acceptable to entertaining conversation?
Yeah, no, we could go that route.
So the only thing I'd want to look at that is over time, what's cheaper, paying the transmission fee for that system or buying, purchasing.
Or putting our own system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great option. And like I said, it's good to have those questions come in because we could throw them into the mix and research it. And
Well, it seemed like
study it.
if we added undiluted water to our water, that would drop the levels that we have. So it would be somewhat safer for everybody than children.
Yeah, it's gonna come down to more of a, you gotta deal with gravity to get the water to the tank and stuff like that. However, it does come down to whether they have the capacity to do it first. And then we can at least get that information from them, that could be an option.
I'm just saying it's an option to explore.
Sure.
Our demand back then is different than our demand today, plus our future demands are gonna be increasing also. So I would be surprised if Newcastle's system could provide the water that we need.
Well, it would certainly be significantly less to pay for the addition of the air equipment and building a whole new one, since the land is already there.
We'll have to research that.
These are all options that should be just brainstorming. Yeah, they're brainstorm.
Like I said, we'll look into that.
You guys want to stick around for the comptroller's report?
But first we
Really
have-
thrilling.
I know,
we
what
have-
about the highway
Take a
department?
recess.
Wait a minute.
We
The-
still have
the
other
town
business on the
clerk.
floor, if people want. Yes.
Mr. Noonan, I'm going to limit you to 1 minute.
Yeah, it's like,
It all depends on how long it takes you to answer the
Thank you.
question.
Okay.
My question, at the work session the last Tuesday, you said that you're going to be interviewing people at the next work session for the interim highway superintendent position.
Mhm.
That's right.
Yes.
I haven't seen any kind of an advertisement for this position anyplace. I'm just wondering, how does someone from the public know about the existence of this position and how to apply for it?
We announced it, we announced it at the meeting. We've received 3 resumes and we're proceeding with the interviews for next Tuesday.
You announced it at one of these meetings.
Yes.
It's on the website,
Uh,
televised.
It's not listed on the website. It's,
The town meetings are on the website.
yeah, but there's no notice on the website as to.
it's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
It would be. Wouldn't it be on the agenda?
That would
Because
say-
I remember when it was,
We advertised the fact that we are
Yeah.
accepting resumes for the highway superintendent's position.
I know you mentioned that, but I mean, this is a very important position in the town.
Three people obviously felt that they would like to entertain that position.
Yeah.
They submitted resumes and we'll be doing interviews next Tuesday.
Does a person have to live in the town of Mount Pleasant in order to become the highway superintendent?
You know, it's an elected position.
It's an elected position, yeah. And you don't think it's worth sending out a notice on the website or putting an ad in the Examiner or doing something?
I thought it was adequately publicized on the website, on the TV, and I think that was adequate to get the information out there.
I suppose nobody watches the TV. I mean, how do they? How do
I
they
don't
know?
know I'm not gonna send a letter to everybody's house.
No, I know, but
Obviously, the
you
people
mentioned
that are
a
interested-
one-liner on the TV that somebody may have picked up on, but
I guess if we had
Can-
a shortage of qualified applicants, then I guess we would put it back out to try to get that. But I think what we've received is some very qualified applicants, and we're looking to fill a position quickly. And dealing with someone who's qualified. So I don't know. I don't think we're in a position where, we're desperate to find more qualified applicants at this point. I think whatever we did must have worked because we got a fair number.
yeah, interesting.
It's not a job that, people can just drop and, decide, I'm going to be interim highway superintendent for 5 months. It's an elected position, so people have to give up their full-time job, hope to get elected, and if they don't, then they're out of a job. So it's very hard to find, actually.
That's true. Okay, thanks.
It's in there.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to the town clerk's report.
Yeah, I would like to have it turned to off. Town clerk's agenda, March 12th, 2019, town board meeting. Bid openings, HVAC Town Hall, ball field clay sand mix. Public hearings, amend 6 Liberty Street, Hawthorne, New York to the CNR zone, and local law number 3, 2019, possession, distribution, and consumption of marijuana and cannabis. Received supervisor and registrar's report, February 2019. Received building department monthly report, February 2019. Received annual report from Recreation and Parks Commission for 2018. Received request for liquor license waiver, The Station Boys, Inc., 389 Elwood Avenue, Hawthorne, New York, 10532. Received from Planning Board of Village of Sleepy Hollow, notice of public hearing regarding amended site plan approval submitted by Carl Dibble and KWD Realty LLC. Received from Planning Board of Appeals of Village of Sleepy Hollow, notice of public hearing regarding application by Lauren Connell and Zeth Markowitz.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move on to council reports. Councilman DePaula.
Thank you. Good evening to the public. On behalf of the Comptroller's Office, I have the Comptroller's memo dated 3/12/19, and we're seeking authorization on the following bills to be paid. Out of Justice Court, Carl Anderson, $5,750. Precise Translations LLC, $2,045, $1,315 for a grand total of $9,110. Out of the Receiver of Taxes, Software Consulting Associates, annual contract, $2,500. Morgan Business Systems, these are tax bill forms for $844.80. $193.50. Syntex Systems, and this was for $729 for a total of $1,422.50. Out of Home Delivered Meals, we have Imperial Bag and Paper. This was for paper supply, $385.17. Out of Bradhurst Program, again, Imperial Bag and Paper, paper supply, $367.56. That's the total. Out of Supplemental Nutrition Assistance, again, paper supply, $387.26. Youth day camps, we have some different trips that we're paying out. Again, these are all paid by the campers that attend, but we have to actually pay the bill, and that's to Camelback for $5,347.50. Mega Funworks, which is $3,404. Mountain Creek, which is looks like a total of $5,119.59, and Playland, which is $2,700, and the grand total under youth day camps is $15,795.79. Out of Kensico Water, we're paying Kinsley Power Systems for some service. That's $2,590. We are paying SGD Landscaping $1,730.65, and that is for a total of $4,320.65. Out of Trust and Agency Escrow, Cleary Consulting for various different consulting projects, one on Bradhurst for $125, one on Commerce for $125, one on Columbus Avenue for $125, and one on Bedford Road for $125. The total for Trust and Escrow is $500, and the grand total for this week's Comptroller's report is $35,633.73, respectfully submitted by our Comptroller, Brian Keneally. I would seek authorization to approve.
Motion by Mr. DePaula,
Second.
second by Mr. Soriano. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then, one more out of the Comptroller's Office is we're seeking to send our Comptroller and Deputy Comptroller to attend the 2019 New York State Annual Conference for Comptrollers. It'll be in Albany from March 27th through the 28th. And bear with me one second as I open up the expense. Looks like the grand total for both attendees, which would include everything from conference fees, membership, hotel, meals, all the standard costs that go along with that would be $1,630.42. I move for approval.
Motion by Mr. DePaula,
Second.
second by Ms. Smalley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Councilman Soriano.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My report is from the Police Department. We have 3 items for you for this evening. The first item is authorization to send 8 police officers to Police Patrol Tactics Trainings Conference. The cost is $100 per officer. And I respectfully ask the board for a motion of approval for this training for our police officers.
Motion by Mr. Saliano,
Second?
second by Ms. Hagadis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And the second item, Mr. Supervisor, is authorization for a police officer to attend verbal de-escalation, surviving verbal conflict training. Sergeant John Bacardi is going to attend this training. And the price, they didn't give, it's $390. And I respectfully ask the board for approval for this training for this officer. Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Saliano. Sounds like something that we could use at other departments.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
We could all use it.
Any second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Hagadis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And the last item, Mr. Supervisor, is authorization to hire part-time school crossing guard police attendant effective March 15, 2019. And we're going to hire at $25 per hour Mrs. Rita Mercurio. And she's going to fulfill this. She's going to take this position. It's effective March 15th. I ask the board for approval, please.
Motion by Mr. Saliano,
Second?
second by Ms. Smalley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I thank you. Have an excellent evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Smalley.
Good evening. I have 6 items this evening from the Department of Recreation and Parks. The first item is purchase order 70-19-14 LED floodlights for the community center uplights. Please note that these lights will, the conversion of the community center uplights from metal halide to LED. And the total cost is $2,150 delivered. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
I'll
Second.
second that. Oh,
Whoops. Go ahead.
second by Ms. Hagadis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is guard chair decking. It's coming to that season, folks, of summertime. This price quote is from vendor Bell Aqua. It is for total cost $2,299.03 to be picked up in New Rochelle. And they are guard chair decking replacements. 2 at $733.29 and 1 at $832.45. Purchase order 70-19-15. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second.
second by Mr. Saliano. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It's my understanding that on this, I talked to Bruce Rill about this guard chair decking units. It's specific materials and suppliers that you have to deal with. You can't just make
Yes.
up your own decking material. So
No, because
that meets certain standards.
everything at the pool does, because it has to go through Westchester County Department of Health, and they're very, very strict. Okay, the next item is authorization to extend the pool concession contract. We request the authorization to extend this contract for 3 years. The term of the agreement is for 3 years with an option to extend for up to another 3 years. Westchester Food Services has held the contract for 2016, 17, and 18. The Recreation Commission recommends the extension of the contract for 3 more years as listed. 2019, the contract is $8,150 plus $850 for utilities. In 2020, the contract is $8,350 plus $850 for utilities. And in 2021, the contract is for $8,650 plus $850 for utilities. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second.
second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is Recreation and Parks are requesting approval of this attached instructor rates for 95 programs that are offered in the spring and summer of 2019.
Can you read them all?
I was going to just, okay,
Oh,
Mr.
God.
DiPaolo, ready?
That's right. No.
These programs go from A to Z, from adult karate to Z Zumba, also includes Baby Zumba, and new this year is a course called 20-20-20, which is an exercise class. I would like to read each individual one, but it will be here for a while. The attached Recreation and Parks Spring Summer brochure will list the instructors, the residence fee, and the date times of classes. Not all the programs listed will operate every season. It depends on enrollment. Right now, what I'm looking for is approval for the instructor rates. They vary from 85% of the resident fee to, at times, just $110 paid to the instructor for the entire course. Again, all documentation is in the Superintendent of Recreation and Parks office. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second?
second by Ms. Haggis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item's easy. It's authorization to hire Sean Martin as an intern for the Recreation Department from April 15th through June 7th, 2019. Move for approval, please.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second?
second by Ms. Haggis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Please note he'll be earning hours for the Westlake Internship Program. And the last item is authorization to hire day camp counselors, to hire camp directors for preseason effective March 13th, 2018. They will be permanent part-time employees effective March 13 at a rate of $25 an hour. Denise Antonecchia, Tara Thomas, PJ Levins, Peter Kramer, and Ken Barrios. Move for approval, please.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Smalley,
Second.
second by Mr. Saliano. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
One last item, please. I'd like to read from the Recreation Department Commission report for the year of 2018. The total activities and the total user visits in 2018 in the Recreation Department here in Mount Pleasant were 21,395. In 2018, there were 968 day camp campers. In 2018, there were 4,300 memberships sold for the pool with over 60,000 visits, on average 1,200 visits a day at the pool in June and July. So when we say we have a state-of-the-art recreation department, we certainly do. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we posted that on the website also for public information.
Very good. Thank you.
Councilwoman Haggis.
Yes, I have here two purchase orders. One for the salt that we buy to keep our highways free from snow and ice. And we purchased them in different portions. And this one was for 500 tons at $65.74 per ton. And the anticipated fuel price for 500 tons of salt is 0.06 cents. And so the total cost is $32,840. And the next purchase of salt.
We'll do the one at a time.
Oh, sorry. The total cost on the invoice may vary from the total cost listed on this purchase order due to lower or higher tonnage upon delivery and or an increase in the fuel surcharge at the time of delivery. The highway superintendent and the comptroller have both agreed to allow up to a 10% increase on the total cost for this purchase in the event that the tonnage and or the fuel surcharge exceed the intended amount upon receipt and the final invoice issued for payment. And so I move to approve, please.
Motion by Ms. Haggis. Second. Second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And this is the second purchase of salt as well, and that is also from Atlantic Salt, and it is 500 tons. It's $64.75 per ton for a total of $32,870. And the anticipated fuel price adjustment for 500 tons of salt is 0.09. And similarly, the total cost of the final invoice may vary from the total cost listed on this purchase order due to lower or higher tonnage upon delivery and or increase in the fuel surcharge at the time of delivery. The highway superintendent and the comptroller have both agreed to allow up to a 10% increase on the total cost for this purchase order in the event that the tonnage and/or the fuel surcharge exceed the intended amount upon receipt of the final invoice issued for payment. I move to approve, please.
Is that total cost, $32,000?
32,000, I'm sorry, I gotta go back. $32,870.
I think the adjusted amount was $32,825.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry, total cost, 825.
Okay.
$32,825.
Motion by Ms. Haggis. Second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is a request from David Barker, who's the Director of Fleet Operations, and it is an authorization to discard Water Department Truck 23. I'm requesting the authorization to discard of WD-23, our 2001 Chevy Astro van, and its inventory number is 001923, and I'm not going to read the vehicle identification number. The rust and rot will not allow us to perform another New York State inspection. I'm requesting that this vehicle be removed from our inventory, and upon approval, I will remove this vehicle from our insurance policy. I move to approve, please.
Motion by Ms. Haggis.
Second.
Second by Ms. Smalley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the second one similarly is from David Barker, Director of Fleet Operations. He is requesting the authorization to discard of Highway Department's 1996 Ford F-350 pickup truck inventory, and I'm not going to read the VIN number. The frame is cracked and will no longer pass New York State inspection. I'm requesting that this vehicle be removed from our inventory, and upon approval, I will remove this vehicle from our insurance policy. I move to approve, please.
Motion by Ms. Haggis. Second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the last request from Mr. David Barker, Director of Fleet Operation, is the authorization to discard Highway Department Truck 47. At this time, I would like to discard and remove from our inventory highways 2001 Ford F-550 dump truck and plow. There's two things. The cross members that hold the frame together have rot. The fuel tank mounting the holes have rotted out, and it has become unsafe and not effective to repair. Upon approval, I will then remove them from our insurance. And I move to approve this, please.
Motion by Ms. Haggis. Second by Mr. DiPaolo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Town Attorney, I don't believe has anything to report this evening. Our scheduled meetings, we need a resolution to change the start time of next Tuesday's work session due to interviews. The scheduled start time will be Tuesday, March 19th at 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m.
Is that an anticipated executive session?
It would be a
I move to approve.
motion by Ms. Haggis,
Second.
second by Mr. Saliano. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And our business session will be Tuesday, March 26th at 8 p.m. Just one further note, moving forward, all licensing for animals will be going through our town clerk's office. That used to go through the village of Pleasantville, as we always work with the village, whatever we can. We will now be taking over that responsibility. So anybody in the village that needs to license their pet will be coming to Susan here, and she will happily give you a permit for your pet.
Do we bring the pet?
I would leave the pet at home if
Yeah,
possible.
I have several.
Just bring all the proper documentation. If there be no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Saliano.
Second.
By Mr. DiPaolo. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, all. Thank you.